Good evening, everybody. Welcome to our City Council meeting this evening on Wednesday, October 9th. We apologize for the delay. Our previous meeting, we had one agenda item. Take a little bit longer than we anticipated, so needed to get through that. So our apologies. We try to get these started on time. We're going to jump right in tonight. It's always a pleasure when we have somebody willing to do a flag ceremony. Tonight we're welcoming Scout Troop 820. So if you'll come forward. Right there. That one. Yep, that microphone. Yep.
Color guard, attention. Audience, attention. Please rise. Color guard, advance. Scouts, salute. Those not in uniform, please honor the flag in an appropriate manner. Color guard, halt. Color guard, please present the colors. Please recite the Pledge of Allegiance with me. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. 2. Color guard, post the flag of the United States of America. Color guard, please post the secondary colors. Color guard, please honor your colors. 2. Color guard, reform ranks. Color guard, forward march. Color guard, halt. Color guard, dismissed. Audience at ease.
Thank you, Troop 820. We appreciate you all being here tonight and allowing us that opportunity. Thank you. Move now to item 4.2, any city council comments or recognitions. I'll give a shout out to staff for the Harriman Howl and everybody involved with that, all the sponsors, local businesses. We figure 10,000 people, that's kind of our, in that range. Packed here, yes, on Monday, phenomenal. So we had a blast, a lot of fun. So thank you to everybody involved, just nothing but positive I heard everywhere I went on Monday, so. Oh my gosh, we got to coordinate next year. Okay, no other comments, recognitions? Okay, we'll move on to item 5 tonight, which is our public comment portion. Audience members at this time may bring any item within the city's purview to the city council's attention. Comments will be limited to 2 minutes. State law prohibits the council from acting on items that do not appear on the agenda. Public comments for this meeting will also be conducted electronically. Any person interested in addressing the council may submit a comment by emailing recorder@harriman.org or by visiting harriman.org/agendas and minutes, where there is a link to fill out an online public comment form. Your statement will be incorporated into the public record. At this point, I only have 2 forms. We'll start with Spencer Harvey.
Good evening. Thank you for letting us come. First off, I'll echo your sentiments about the Harriman Howl. I was there as well, and it was fantastic. My name is Spencer. This is Clark. We're obviously with Edge Homes. And we had a recent opportunity to build a stage for Friends of Harriman for the play set over by the Equestrian Center. And we just wanted to come and say thank you for the awesome city that Harriman is and the community that you guys build, and your partnership with the community and the city and with Friends of Harriman, and the opportunity to give back. So thanks for all you do. We greatly appreciate our relationship with you guys and the work that we're able to do with you.
Thank you, Spencer. And I will say that they appreciated it, and I know, knowing you've been involved 2 years now, I think this is your second year.
That's right.
The set is just phenomenal. So,
Yeah, and we look forward to more.
We
So.
appreciate your help on that, your
you.
support with that.
It was definitely built well, because when we had to tear it down, it took several man-hours, so we definitely appreciate it, yeah. And I know that our kids, a couple of our kids up here have been able to perform on that, and so we appreciate your service and talent for sure.
Thank you.
Thank you for your partnership in the city. So we appreciate it. Sergeant Sam Winkler. He did put sergeant on here.
I appreciate that. 25 years. So, okay, just a couple things for consideration. First of all, side yard setbacks, just for consideration. It would be nice if the city can consider side yard setbacks with the driveway side to be increased to 10 feet. That's one main reason being storage of trailers. Right now, there's only a handful of lots here in Harriman, and they don't take trailers because they've taken that out to put extra storage in. The city's been cracking down on residents that have extra space in their yard, and they've been storing other people's trailers. I know that's obviously a violation of city ordinance to do that. So it's leaving a lot of us with trailers with no place to go. And if you do find someplace, you're spending a mortgage to store your trailer. So if we had an increase of the side yard setback on the driveway side to 10 foot, that would accommodate most trailers and allow people who live in Harriman to actually keep their trailer behind their fence line in compliance with the ordinance and not have to rely on some random person to store it for you. So that was the first thing. Second thing is, as an accident investigator, that was my specialty. Harriman Howell, I mean, a lot of people, but there was a lot of people who were trapped in the intersection when the light changed because there's lacking time on the pedestrian crossings. So, and I also see that in the morning over here by Silvercrest Elementary School with the crossing guard because of lack of time. So it'd be nice to have the city work with the county signals to increase the times on those. I know typically they go 3 feet per second. It can go maybe down a little bit more to give the time. But then the school crossing guards at these various locations, not just by Silvercrest, but others, the city, the county and the state, if it's a state signal, can put a crossing guard override switch in to change programming to take away flashing yellows and increase pedestrian time to help keep those pedestrians and crossing guards out of the intersection when the light changes. So we all know that they're still required to stop, but everybody's on their phones and distracted. So just a couple things for consideration.
Perfect.
That was a good game yesterday.
It was.
Yeah.
Thanks, Sam.
Oh, geez. I
Okay, I
like
don't
the shirt,
have-
by the way, Sam.
Safe UT. I don't have any more comment forms, but if there's anybody else who would like to make a comment at this time?
My apologies for not filling out the form. My name is Matt Basham. I want to talk on a couple of issues here. The first one's boring. I own a food truck, and as a Harriman resident, I would love that when I come to an event in Harriman, that the sales tax could stay here in Harriman instead of going to Riverton, where my truck lives and my business license is. So that can be accomplished through special events forms, stuff like that. They can be a one-time event, or it can be an event that is, I think, 6 months. So there's some ways for the city to capture some of that sales tax for, let's say, the Halloween Howl that just happened, or the food trucks that are here on Monday. It's a little extra work for us as business owners, but literally it's a form we fill out, goes to the tax commission, and then we subtract that amount from the special event from our regular sales tax stuff. Now to the fun thing. Got a little, the South Valley Journal, that's what I know it as. I know it's called something else now, but that's what I know it as. Front page on the South Valley Journal about this wheelchair basketball game that happened the end of July between Harriman and Bluffdale. Winners aren't important, but it was just a super great event. It was to benefit the adaptive arena that's owned and operated by Ashley Guyman, who is a Harriman resident here, and she has a nice little poster downstairs that's smiling at us. Her business basically brings able-bodied and disabled youth athletes together to be able to participate in sports. So there was a wheelchair basketball game put together as part of a fundraiser that I understand raised about $6,000. So kudos to that, and Mayor Palmer and Council Member Hodges for participating. And I'll just mention that the officiating was excellent.
Thanks, Matt.
Matt and Cohen were the referees, so if that.
We know at least one of them was good.
Thank you, Matt. We appreciate your help at that event, too. I think the amount ended up being about 11,000 after they added up everything else after. It's about 11,000. Pretty cool event, so. Thank you, Matt. And check out his Churrology food truck. He does churros the right way. Okay, any other public comment at this time? Okay, seeing none, we will move on to our city council reports. We'll start tonight with Jared.
None tonight. I'll have plenty for you this next time.
Okay. Teddy.
Nothing to update you on. Yep.
Okay. Sherry.
Nope, I think I'll defer to Pam Roberts on Wilfred, so we're going to hear about that in a few minutes.
Perfect. Okay. Steve?
Nothing tonight, thank you.
Wow. You guys didn't give me time to check over my calendar.
A ribbon cutting.
Oh, sweet.
Nope, that's all I have as far as stuff to report, actually, looking back through. So that was easy tonight. As Sherry mentioned, we're going to move on to item 8.1. It's always a privilege to have Ms. Roberts with us here. So tonight we're going to have a Wasatch Front Waste and Recycling District report by the Executive Director, Pam Roberts. And again, Pam, it's always great to have you with us.
Thank you, Mayor. I really appreciate that. And it's always good to be out here and visit with you as council and staff and the residents. It's a privilege to be here. I have to say that I'm always surprised when I ride my motorcycle out here, and I enjoy it so much to ride the back roads, and it's just amazing the development that's happening. So I compliment you on keeping up with everything, and we do our best to keep up as well with all the new development. Tonight I have something to report as we go along about financial and the 2025 budget. But before I do that, I do want to point out some of the great work that my team does, and I'm very proud. On this front cover, you'll see this is our CNG fueling island. And this is during the morning. We took a drone shot. And you can see a cab that's tilted. So our CDL drivers are required by Department of Transportation requirements to do a pre-trip inspection every morning and make sure that everything's safe and ready to operate. And then at the end of the day, they have to do a post-trip as well. So this is just a snapshot of what I call the morning scramble when people are getting ready for the day. And then one of the things to note is our vision is a sustainable organization that provides for the welfare of our communities. That's important for me to state as I go along and talk about the needed fee increase for 2025. And the mission that we have, that integrated system that we have for collections, because not everything fits in the can, we do have an array of ways for residents to get rid of their waste, as you know. Okay, there we go. Just briefly, we focus on employee satisfaction and engagement. One of the things that's really helped our satisfaction is we had a 2-year drought with truck replacement. So we now have trucks that are older than we've ever experienced. They're 10 years old. Our sweet spot, or where we would like to replace trucks, is right at the 7-year mark. We've learned that because of the maintenance cost versus purchase cost. So we're well beyond that, so we know that we are needed to make a change and keep up with the 8 truck replacement schedule going forward. And I'll get into those cost increase going forward. We always like to celebrate any chance we get. There is what's called the National Waste and Recycling Workers Day in the month of June, and we have a food truck come on site and make sure our team participates, and we celebrate each and every one of them. And then leadership development is something that I started way back when in 2008. It's something that I think is very important, as well as employee development overall. So we've been engaging with some consultants throughout this year, as we have in the past, and will continue going forward. Oops. There we go. Just on the recycling transparency, HB 107, the state statute that was passed, I wanted to make sure I pointed out to you that we are helping our cities and our towns follow your requirements by making sure that we follow ours and report to you all of the recycling that we pick up here in the city, and we do transport over to Rocky Mountain Recycling that's in South Salt Lake City. And we do try to curb costs as much as we possibly can. So we've had residents that have reported. We made sure we reached out to your newsletter folks and to you as a community to make sure you understand that the same drivers will come around in the morning, pick up garbage, and then they'll go to the Trans-Jordan landfill, hopefully 1 trip or 2 trips at the most, and then that same driver may very well come back and pick up recycling. And it does go out to the Rocky Mountain Recycling Facility to be dumped. The reason we do that is we're trying to save trips to and from. Before, we used to split. There was 3 garbage drivers, 3 recycling, so now it's just 1 trip to the recycling center versus 2 or 3 going back and forth. So we're trying to save time and money and miles anywhere we possibly can. But at any rate, this is a snapshot of a screenshot of our web page where under the About button, you can hit that tab, it'll drop down, you hit District Stats, and you'll see this page pop up. This is new that we started this year, specifically to make sure we're transparent on what we collect in the district. You can see the recycling tonnage. This is through Q2 of this year. We're required to report to you at least twice a year of the recycling tonnages that we collect. And then we have an overall diversion rate that we report on our page, and as well as community newsletters. And you'll see that coming out for the November newsletter this month. At any rate, we will have a tab or a link to each of your websites that a resident could go in and see your specific stats. And there is a drop down as well below this page, or what I have on the screen, that does show each municipality and the current tonnage that we have collected for you through Q2. Any questions on that?
18,000 pounds of leaves.
I'm sorry?
18,000 pounds of leaves, 9 tons of leaves, that's a lot.
It is a lot. Oops, sorry, I'm going backwards. I have trouble. Here we go. So here's some tonnages for you. As I mentioned, the garbage we do with the same group, at least the garbage doing it first and then recycling second. But Harriman City, January through August, your diversion rate is 19%, which is slightly above the district goal of 18%. And the 18% that we've hit district-wide overall is slightly higher than we hit last year. So we're thankful for that. We want to try to divert as much waste away from the landfill to be reused rather than buried. Curbside green waste, we have over 1,700 subscribers out here. We've collected 549 tons so far. Christmas trees, you can see that. And as you mentioned, the trailers we've got coming out, that's a trailer rental. And then the disposal fees you can see over here. Year to date, recycling is slightly lower than the landfill fee. Trans-Jordan has raised their rates $2 per ton every year for the past 5 years. We've heard that again next July they will raise again and go up to $43 a ton. And I know that they're trying to make sure they have enough fund balance and cash to build that transfer station that will be in Sandy City. And depending on their price per ton, it will depend on if we take anything to that facility. And then the processing of green is $17 a ton. One thing to note on the glass site that we have out here, we've diverted 18 tons away. There's no cost to process that glass. We don't get charged any fees, but we do, of course, pay the hauling fees to take that. Let's talk about the seasonal container reservation, which I know is a popular topic for every municipality that we visit with as I go out. It's called SCRAP, and it's named that for a reason. The staff wanted to put an acronym to it, so they backed into the seasonal container reservation program through the acronym itself. They called it SCRAP, and then went from there, which I thought was great and creative. As you may know or may not know, this is the 5th year we've run this particular program this way, and I really love these pictures because it does illustrate the former program, the then and the now. As you can see, we did have piles in the street. There were times here in Harriman we did have to empty out a container that was full of dirt, I mean to the brim, full of dirt, and obviously we can't haul that. It's well over 2 tons. So at any rate, there's those times that it can be abused if it's just out in the street. So we did start the program where they deliver it to the driveway, mainly because of staffing issues, and I think I've talked about that before. I can address that, any questions as we go along. But the Harriman services, we were out here Wednesday, July 3rd through Thursday, July 25th, which was roughly 3 weeks. And during that time, we collected 570 tons of waste and hauled it over to Transjordan. You may know or may not, but we start the program in a city and we move clockwise throughout the district. So this year we started in Mill Creek and we moved clockwise here in Harriman, July, and then ended in Taylorsville on September 30th. Next year we'll start in Holiday and Murray and then again move clockwise. And the reason that was developed, and it came about through the board decision when the board was first created, it was 2011 that they wanted to make a change because we used to start in Harriman every year because the containers are stored just over what's called now Bingham Creek Park, right? So at any rate, the board wanted to try to get a spring and a fall cleanup for each municipality at least once throughout a 5-year rotation, 6-year. So we were able to accomplish it. The other stats that I wanted to talk about is that we were able to accommodate 884 reservations out of the just over 1,100 that were requested. That's 87% accommodation for what was reserved, or requested, I should say. And district-wide, it was 74%, so we're a little better out here. And part of that, I think, is we're so close to the landfill, we could do a little bit more than 60 a day. Okay, getting into the tough topic. I do have a little bit more information than what you'll see on this slide, and I'll get into that in a minute. But just to note that this table at the top of the page is to illustrate the increased costs that we have incurred since 2020. And this has been shown to the board. I do have to say that this does not include 2025 budget. There are cost increase, obviously, that will be associated with each of these categories. To note that since we are a service provider, the biggest portion of our expenditures is personnel wages for our people, right? And then to try to keep up with the salary markets, as I'm sure you've all experienced with your own staff, especially in the labor markets and the public works, police, fire, we try to keep up with those competing wages that just seem to keep escalating. We want to keep good people and make sure that we make that happen. Just recently on August 26th during a board meeting, the board did approve a salary market adjustment to move forward as of September, and that cost was $130,000 this year. Going forward, it's $372,000 annual, and then that will be what's on top of that is also a 4% COLA recommendation that I brought forward with our comp consultants' recommendations, and then a 2% merit increase. Just to note, the last fee increase that we implemented was in 2023. It was 5 years since the last one in 2018. We raised it $2.50, going up to $19.50 from $17. Prior to that, the last fee increase was in 2014. So the thing to note is generally we've had fee increases about every 4 years. We waited 5, thinking that we would be okay, and then we implemented $2.50, understanding that really we needed like $3.50, and we were hoping that we could, could keep that going forward with absorbing increased costs, and we just have not been able to do it. We've stayed behind the curve of an 8%, 9%, 8% inflationary costs for the past 3 years, and then going forward to next year. What we've done is engage with a financial advisory firm through Zions to try to help us forecast, take a look at where we're at right now, and then they can come forward and give me suggestions that I can take before the board to talk about fees. So far, what they've been able to do, looking at our finances and our fee projections and what our needs are for cash, because we are an enterprise fund, we operate on cash. Just to state, we've never really charged what it costs, but we were able to manage that because we had a healthy fund balance. And right now, that is depleting. And so there is a need for a fee increase. If we don't do it in 2025, and if it's not big enough, then it's very well that we will basically be out of business, bottom line. I hate to say that. The board is scheduled a special meeting to review recommendations from Zions and to also look at the proposed budget for 2025. And they're going to drill down. They've asked us to drill down on program cost accounting. You saw that integrated waste collection system. We're going to break out costs for each of those. We charge a monthly fee, and we have curbside waste and recycling, scrap, leaves, Christmas tree, trailers, and other things that are on top of that, landfill vouchers, the glass site. So we're going to drill that down so the board can see what each of those cost. And does the board have a desire to change the public policy and break out fees for each service or the container program or whatnot? So that'll be a policy decision. It'll also be a policy decision if the board wants the district to incur debt. We are debt-free, and I've been proud to say that for 17 years. However, there may be a need or a policy decision to change that. The other thing to note is the board is on schedule to adopt the tentatively adopt the tentative budget on October 28th at 9 a.m. There's also a budget hearing that will be held on November 18th at 6 p.m. To hear comments on the tentative budget. And at their option, the board may either adopt the budget on November 18th, or they may choose to adopt it Monday, December 16th at 9 a.m. during their regular meeting. One thing to note is all board meetings are held at our offices at 604 West, 6960 South in Midvale. And they are public meetings. You can attend in person. You can attend online. There are links through our agendas that are posted every month. So, questions? Anything that you might have for me?
I don't have any questions.
I do want to shout out to Councilmember Orn. Sherry, you've been on our board since 2018, I believe. So this 6th year, and I want to thank you because you are a steady source of information, and also you are what I call our watchdog to make sure that we're being efficient. And I thank you so much because as an efficiency junkie, I really appreciate somebody else's eyes that has that same passion to make sure that we are trying to absorb increased costs anywhere we possibly can.
She might mean steady source of annoyance, but I'm not sure.
I'm glad she gets to do to somebody else for a change.
Yeah. But yeah, no, you're great, and I appreciate you. Sometimes I will call and just say, hey, I need some advice, I need some guidance on this, and I want to thank you for that. And thank you for your support, too. you have great support, and I thank you for that.
Thank you. You're
Thank you,
running
Pam.
a
Yes.
Good organization.
Yep. Appreciate
Sorry, I have a
it.
couple questions, Pam.
Oh, good.
I didn't want to stop talking trash, so thank you.
Boys picked a good night to be here. We're talking about garbage at City Council. Or some would say that's all we talk about. I'll follow up with some of these questions with Sherry later on, but it was kind of concerning me. I don't know if we can go back to the previous slide showing the increase in costs. I was just adding up, going 2-year intervals, 2020, 2022, 22 to 24. Wait, I mean, when you're providing services, so full disclosure, right, I was involved with our police department separation from UPD. I'm the finance chair for UFA, and I'm dealing with all of this stuff on those levels, and I'm always in Nathan's ear about it with the city. But just looking at wages and overtime, the percentage increases are kind of troubling to me. So from 2020 to 2022, the total percentage increase 17%, 22 to 24, 29%. And then to look at a market increase, a merit increase, and a COLA. I have follow-up questions with all of those. But the one that I'll bug Sherry about, the one that is concerning is why there's a doubling in that dollar amount and percentage from the 2020 to 22, a doubling of that from 22 to 24.
Yeah, thank you for asking. One thing to also note that's included in that are additional FTEs. As the district has grown, we've had to add additional driver positions. We now have 65 total driver positions. We've added an apprentice trainer, an equipment operator apprentice program, and maybe that should be called out and broken out during that.
Yeah, I'll follow up with her to see what the anomaly is, but to see.
Yeah.
I mean, 17%, if you take higher average inflation, then that's still higher than normal, right? 7 or 8% per year, but then to go to 30%, so 15% for each year, that's much higher than inflation, which is concerning to, I think, all the taxpayers, because I know I'm not getting those kind of increases to pay those wages.
Right.
So I'll follow up to get more details on how
Okay.
that on how that vets out. The other thing I'll mention is the COLA. Well, I'll come back to you with the COLA. The merit bothers me because merit ends up as a COLA. I've yet to see any, especially any government entity, actually show me a process, a system where they actually incentivize people to work at a higher level that warrants a merit. That's what it's supposed to be. They've done something extra to merit something additional in addition to what everybody else gets. It just turns into a COLA for everyone. So that's like 6% across the board plus a market, right? And that's a whole nother conversation. So just a few, maybe those aren't questions, points to make that I'll follow up.
No, I appreciate that. I can tell you just overarching, a lot of it was simply we couldn't keep drivers. And without somebody sitting in our truck, we can't pick up garbage. And so there was such a high demand, especially in the competing with CDL drivers in the construction industry and stuff like that, that it just stripped us of our drivers. And the only way we could keep them was pay them. And it's hard because you look at government, it's like, isn't it an advantage? Isn't it a salary compensation to know that tomorrow you're going to still have a job? It's not going to be shut down because the construction industry is gone, because the garbage industry is not going to go away. So there's compensation there and things like that. But the problem is sometimes you're competing with a younger pool of people who just need a paycheck. So that's been a huge driver in a lot of it. We do have a salary consultant that we have hired that runs salary consultant analysis, runs analysis through a bunch of different competing industries to try and make sure that we stay in line. And we're always chasing it. I know I was kind of one of those antagonists at the last increase that we had in August, because what I don't want to do is continually mid-year come back and ask for another raise. We have to make sure our budget carries us through the whole year. And then if it's warranted for the next year, we have to, so we had those discussions for sure this last year, because we have a couple of years in a row now, mid-year we've given raises, and it's like we just can't continue to go down that path because we can't chase it. So anyway, so I'll have good discussions with you about that, but those are kind of overarching. The biggest things is keeping drivers in the seat.
Yeah, and that speaks to why we had to make the change with the container delivery program. We could not keep people employed. We couldn't hire them and keep them, even at a part-time basis. So we did have to, change the program for safety purposes and to be able to provide it at all. But there was a CDL, and still is a CDL driver shortage nationwide in every industry. And I'm shocked that it's still there. And that's why we developed the apprentice program.
Yeah, that's kind of a outside of the box thinking, how can we deal with this? We exactly developed this apprentice program so that we're training our own CDL drivers internally and hopefully getting some buy-in and some loyalty with them to go through this process so that once they're trained, there's a cost associated with it for sure, but then hopefully they stay with it.
So we had a similar thing at the sewer district where our CDL drivers would come in and get trained 3-6 months and then move on. So and it cost us a lot less to send them to our own school rather than a private school, and then we could hire them within and apprentice them. And so it worked out for us. Now we're fully staffed, but that was one issue we kept on bumping up against, so.
Awesome. Yeah, and the program just completed its first year. We had 2 graduates one was in June, one was just last month, Lori and Jesus, and they're still with us, and they say they're going to retire with us, and I'm happy about that. I hope
Get it in writing, yeah.
I hope that pans
Sign a
out.
contract when you go through that
Yeah,
program.
yeah, we hope that pans out. But we do have some veterans. We just had John Whitaker retire after 25 years, I think it was, that John retired. So we do still have some veterans, but we hope to be able to fill the seat when those veterans retire. That's the challenge. But I appreciate your diligence and looking at that and questioning. I would too. Thank you.
Well, as I was telling you, that's, when we ask questions, it's not criticizing. Our job is oversight, right?
Absolutely.
To represent our residents who are paying the bills. If we don't ask the questions, we're not doing the job.
Absolutely.
So I'll have more for you.
Yeah, well, and the truck costs. I mean, look at the price of trucks, and next year we've budgeted $436K for a garbage truck. And I think that's more than I paid for my house back in 2016. So I'm just like,
It's true.
wow. Anyway, did you
Yep,
have
no,
other?
perfect. Thank you very much.
I have to stop, talk? Okay.
Appreciate it. Thank you so
Thank you.
much, Pam. Thank you for being here tonight. Thank you, everybody, for the discussion. We'll move on to item 8.2 then, Salt Lake County Public Safety Bond Presentation. Councilmember Stringham is here. The team. Welcome. John, do you have the slides? Yep.
Hello, everybody. How are you tonight? We're grateful for some time on your meeting tonight and an opportunity to talk about what the county is doing right now with the bond that we've got on the upcoming election. So I'm going to start out really quickly. I'm Laurie Stringham. I'm the chair of Salt Lake County Council. Our county council has been going out and meeting with all the different cities. There are 23 municipalities in Salt Lake County, so it's been a whirlwind. So we've been running all night tonight, and I've been doing that for several weeks. So we're hoping that we can answer questions and help you understand what it is we're trying to accomplish in this. You want to go to the next slide real quick? Who's doing the slides? Oh, I am. Found it. Yeah, I see that. One left, right, okay. Are these the same ones or are they different? Okay. We have several iterations, and we're finding that it's a surprise on who's got which one. So, all right, we're going to start here, and who is this one?
I can
Is that
take
you?
it. Yeah.
All right, there we go.
So overall, my name's Matt Dumont. I'm the Chief Deputy for the Salt Lake County Sheriff's Office.
One right after the beginning.
Yeah, this is the first one,
Okay,
yeah.
very good.
So this has been a countywide collaboration. We've worked, there's been bipartisan input by local elected officials as well as our county council, and it's a critical element in our overall Salt Lake County systemic reform plan. It does a few things, focuses on doing a few things. It balances the public safety needs of our county with the human service needs. It realigns and sets Salt Lake County jail and human services systems for success and increases collaboration between the two systems that collaborate a lot already. It creates a structured and secure environment to reduce repeat offenses, and it puts people on a path forward towards self-reliance and success. It funds critical missing elements of our broader systems, and we'll talk about that more in a couple of slides. And it replaces the outdated infrastructure and treatment programs that are currently offered within both systems.
Sorry. Thank you. We're just readjusting. This is part of a larger plan. So Mayor Wilson, about a year ago, joined forces, got together and hashed out what's Salt Lake County's responsibility on issues related to human services, homelessness, and criminal justice. Talked with the governor, talked with mayors, specifically Mayor Mendenhall, Wayne Niederhauser, and they really agreed that they had a shared vision that homelessness is rare, brief, and non-recurring, and wanted to, and Mayor Wilson committed to creating a plan that addressed issues that really intersected between a lot of those issues. And part of that plan is what we're here to talk to you about tonight, which is the bond that's on the ballot this election. But in that plan, and what kind of informed the plan to and the bond, is we looked at our system. We looked at multiple systems, and we identified where gaps are and how Salt Lake County could help to address these gaps. The first and one large one is just need for more housing units with supports. So in addition to the bond, and we can go into this later, in fact, I sent around some information that includes this plan, and you can see that we have a goal of bringing on 1,000 units in the next 5 years. And so that is one piece of a larger plan that Salt Lake County feels that we need to address to really help our communities flourish and the individuals in there. We need to look more at our criminal justice and law enforcement challenges, and we'll get into that a bit with the bond, and other system gaps, including workforce. You guys were just talking about that a little bit ago. We want to make sure that we have sufficient behavioral health care throughout our systems to really be able to help individuals who are experiencing some sort of behavioral health, whether it's mental health issue or substance use issue. We want to make sure that our systems are coordinated, that we have sufficient supports within our jail and connecting outside of jail. And we want to make sure we have good data to look at and to share among systems as well. So just wanted to, again, just reiterate that the bond we're here to talk to you about is a larger plan, and there's several different components of that. You can see we have all of these solutions, and part of the piece that the bond addresses is to the two here, build a justice and accountability center, and enforcement and criminal justice reform. So, yes, and enhance and improve county jail mental health access. Absolutely. So a lot of pieces of the plan, but not entirely. And so, as you can see, it's those pieces. And really with this, and maybe I'll ask Chief to help me, we want to make sure that first, I'm going to go to that, combining two jails. We want to, you want to take this one?
I'd love to, yes.
Yeah.
So currently, the Salt Lake County Sheriff's Office operates two separate facilities, the Metro Jail, or the ADC, it's on 3415 South, 9th West, and then the Oxbow Jail, which is tucked away. It's off of 31st and 11th West. Currently, we're estimating that we make about 20 trips between the facilities, transporting meals, laundry, people, and various other activities. But there's about we make about 20 trips to and from the facilities, between the facilities. Currently, the Oxbow Jail is in dire need of deferred maintenance if it were to continue to operate. We're getting to the point where the deferred maintenance alone is now surpassing the value of the property. And so part of what we would like to do is combine both facilities at the ADC location. We would increase the number of beds. Currently, we're estimating at about 800. That would account for the beds that we lose through the Oxbow jail, which is, it's currently 552 beds, 368 which are currently funded. So we would add an additional total beds of 250, but we have 200 that aren't being currently used, so it's really about a 450 bed gain. Some of the features that we would be looking at include, in an earlier slide, it mentioned that we're the largest mental health provider in the state of Utah. Currently, we only have about 88 beds that we have dedicated towards medical and mental health. As people who work as first responders will tell you, we're dealing with a lot more mentally ill people, a lot more drug addicted people in our communities overall, but it's even more so, more condensed in our jail. So we are in dire need of an increase in the number of mental health beds in an appropriate setting for treating people with mental illness. And then we're also looking at, as part of the addition, a step-down unit. So as we know people are leaving the jail, we can put them into a resource-rich environment so that as they're leaving the jail, if it's workforce, if they need help getting a job, if they need help getting substance abuse treatment in the community, mental health treatment, housing, things like that, this would be a resource-rich environment where they could get those resources, get plugged into and familiarized with those resources. So as they're leaving the jail, they're hitting the ground running. And then we would basically double our capacity in terms of the mental health and medical beds that we have, going from roughly 88 to 160. So that's the general plan for the jail expansion.
Okay, I'll go ahead and talk about this one. The other thing you ought to need, I'm going to touch on really quickly. For those of you who don't know, the Oxbow was closed for 10 years. I don't know if a lot of people know that that facility was actually closed. It wasn't expected to be reopened. During COVID, we were forced to reopen that during that time. And there were a lot of problems with it. There's a reason why we closed it to begin with. We have literally limped it along, and we set aside quite a bit of money to actually do something with it, thinking, well, we might have to open that up and refurbish it and fix it and that, so we actually have something we can work with. We actually looked into that, and that's when we realized that there was a lot of issues. So some of that money that we had set aside is actually part of the $100 million that we have available to go into the bond to offset some of the costs of the full construction of this project. I'm going to talk a little bit about the Justice and Accountability Center. This is kind of a unique concept. In Utah, we do things differently. So we went and actually looked at different facilities throughout the United States to see what are some best practices, what are some things that are being done, and what are some options out there. The Miami-Dade one I did not go on, but I know that there was a lot of really good information gleaned from that. I did go on the one that was actually up in Washington County in Oregon, yes. I forget sometimes where I am these days. Those were really fascinating facilities. We do things a little bit different here in Utah. So we took some of the best things that we saw there that made sense and put it into the way we do business here. One of the things that we are good at here in the state is we use a lot of nonprofits. We use a lot of partnerships and programs when we are working with these things, right? And so when it comes to housing, when it comes to mental health, we use a lot of those type of things. When we're looking at the Justice and Accountability Center, we have some good programs already in place, and this is not meant to take the place of any of those right now, including those that are nonprofit. So I wanted to make sure that's clear. This is meant to enhance the gaps that we found in the process. The Justice and Accountability Center concept actually came out of a series of meetings in which we pulled together a whole group of people that are all part of the criminal justice system. And this started about over a year and a half ago, actually, when we started meeting with them. It included everybody from judges, the DA, our jail, the sheriff's office, behavioral health, our health department, as well as the state prison system and those who are part of that, as well, and people in the legislature they all came together. And we started discussing what does the process look like and what's happening. And in doing so, we were able to identify some of the gaps in the system. And then we said, what is it the county is responsible for? And that is where we came up with this concept and this plan. Part of the problem we have is we've not added a bed to the jail since 2001. And we know that we've had 300,000 people come in since then, right? And so we are at capacity, we are rolling people out, we are doing things that we don't really think are good business practices at this point in keeping our community safe. And so in looking at that, we realized we gotta do something different. Our recidivism right now is at 46%, did I get that right?
It's actually a bit higher.
It's a bit higher, okay. So 46%, we're seeing them come back in, right? Our recidivism rates right now. And so we need to get that down. And what we're doing is not working and getting that down. So we need to do something different. That is where the concept of the Justice and Accountability Center comes in. And I want you to know this was a bipartisan thing because we don't all agree on how that's supposed to be done. We've really talked through, worked this out, and looked at what's going to be best practices, what do we have data on, and what is going to come together. And the Justice and Accountability Center is what came out of that discussion. The goal of this is to give wraparound stabilization services and a unit that provides that for it all in one place. We'll have dedicated caseworkers, job training, employment services, mental health and substance use disorder treatment, and a connection to the housing options. Now understand, this isn't the whole plan. Mayor Wilson actually unveiled a whole plan for homelessness as well as meeting the housing insecurity that we have right now. This is just a small portion dealing with criminal justice. So I want to make sure that's clear because there's been some confusion about what this bond is about. We realized if we were going to build the jail to the actual size we needed, we couldn't afford to. I mean, there's just no way that we could increase and do what we needed to. We needed another option that was less expensive, and we needed something that actually made sense and was doing something different than what we've done in the past. Right now, it is $136 per day to house somebody in our ADC, our adult center. The Justice and Accountability Center is a step-down, lower security facility, and it's only $75 per day to house them there, with the services being provided, okay? That's $60 less per day than jail. That's $22,500 less per year per person. That's a huge amount. So we're looking at, if the jail was at full capacity, we'd be looking, by using the Justice Accountability Center instead of the jail, we're looking at a $6.8 million less per year. So that's a huge cost savings. The concept behind it is kind of unique, but we are already doing this in the state of Utah in a different way. So there is a best practice that we can look at that we're already doing. If any of you are familiar with what's happening with our criminal youth, what's that called again? The youth system? The juvenile justice system, that's it. With our juvenile justice, the juvenile justice system in Utah has got a new format that they're doing right now. And what they do is when somebody's picked up, they're brought in and they're assessed. Do they belong in the detention center or do they need services? What does that look like and what's happening? And because they're youth, we can keep them. We have teeth to keep them, right? Because they aren't actually adults who can make decisions for themselves. So that's why that system's working. And right now, if they come in and they're picked up and they need services, we're getting them services, we're getting them the things that they need, we're giving them wraparound services to say, how can we make you the most successful? And instead of coming in the front door and going into the detention center, which is a multi-level system now, and the buildings are built that way, there's a side door that takes them into the services. Now, if they come back in and they actually have the services, we know that they're getting the help they need and they're actually we're doing well, but they're making bad choices now. Now they're working their way into our system. And what's happening is they're working their way up and they're working their way back down. If they do well, they're doing well in school, they're doing their schoolwork, they're keeping up, they can work themselves right back out and out of the system. But if they're not, they work themselves up into the system until they are getting the support, the help, the things that they need because there's more problems to address. That's the concept behind the Justice and Accountability Center, but we don't have the ability to hold them like we do with the juvenile justice system. This gives us a tool to do that because it's part of our criminal justice system. This is a tool judges can now use to dangle a carrot saying, hey, get in, get the help you need for getting off the drugs, get the help you need for your mental health thing, whatever it is that they need to be able to get them out of the system. This is that carrot. We need to be able to do that. It gives our judges a place to put them. We were told by the judges in this process, if we had a tool for them to use, they would use it. So we're going to do that. We're going to give them a tool we can use that's going to cost us less per day than just putting them in jail. So that's the concept behind this. One of the big parts about this is we realize we need some behavioral health stabilization units. This actually includes 16 of the beds for the intensive mental health and substance abuse treatment units that we have people coming in that need every day, you know. So these are our most severe cases, and this includes part of that to be able to deal with those as they're coming in. All right. You want to talk about this one? Okay.
Yeah. And I touched on this just a little bit ago. This is kind of a summary of that. So the Oxbow gel, the Metro gel, when we close down Oxbow, we'll absorb those numbers, those beds into the ADC, in addition to some additional beds. We'll expand our general population where folks can receive substance use disorder treatment, modernize our mental health unit, implement the step-down unit. The total of new constructed beds, we're looking at 812.
Quick facts, do you want to go over those? Yeah. Okay.
You know, and also just with time, these are often questions that we get. So we've already talked about many of these, including the cost savings, including the stabilization opportunity with the Justice and Accountability Center. With the jail revamp, you know, we talked about the need to, the additional capacity hasn't been increased since 2001. So we've already covered a few of these. Just want to make sure that you have them and can see them too, to see just some of these quick FAQs.
There you go. Here's the cost.
Here's the cost.
Yeah,
This
the
is
breakdown of the capital costs. The lion's share of this goes towards the jail. It includes $90,000 of, or I'm sorry, $90 million of yeah, that'd be great if it was 90,000. Of maintenance and improvements at the adult detention complex, as well as the sheriff's office building. It includes $427 million in jail expansion and improvements. The Justice and Accountability Center, we're looking at $100 million there. Sale of the Oxbow property, we're looking at a $20 million in revenue, but of course, the building, to demolish a building, we're estimating at $10 million. The county has set aside $100 million to help fund this project, which brings the total of the bond to $507 million. For an average home of $602,000, it's looking at a monthly increase of $4.91 to cover the bond. On average, the average business will be impacted by $8.93 monthly for the bond.
Touch on one more thing on this one. For those of you who've done bonds before, you're going to look at the total amount that we're saying and how much it's going to cost the household, and you're like, how is that possible? The county's done some creative work with Zions Bank. We're actually doing the bond in 2 tranches so that you're aware. So one will happen early on in 2006, and we'll start collecting in 2007, roughly about then. And then the other one will be, I don't remember what year, but it's halfway through the time period. It's a 20-year bond. Is it at 10 years, I think, yeah. And so the goal was to, how do we do this to keep it as low as possible for the households? And by doing it in 2 different segments, that made the most sense in being able to pay for this long-term, but not cost everybody everything up front. So we got very creative, and we're grateful for the help we had in looking at that and see what other options we have in doing so. This is the bond language so that you can read through. This is what's going to be on the actual ballot. And then when we say we're combining 2 county jails into one, I'm going to make it clear we're actually closing one that should have stayed closed and moving the people who are currently there now into the jail that we're all the rest of the population is. And then I think that's pretty much straightforward. You guys have that language, and this is what will be on the ballot. Any questions? We'll start there.
What's your anticipated build-out then? If you're staggering the bond, is your anticipated build-out 10 years from now?
So actually, we literally, if this timeline right now, just so you know, we've held 2 public hearings. We just held the other one last night. We did do some surveys and things beforehand, so we've done some things that way. The ballots come out on the 15th. We'll know on 2 weeks after the election day whether this is passed or not. If it passed, we literally will start the process of construction on January 1st. So that includes pulling all of the plans together, starting to going through the RFP processes and all that. So we intend to start that process early. What we do have available to us is, because of the way the county works and we have a general fund, we can offset some of that by adding it back in over time. And so there's some creative financing we did to be able to make that work. But we intend to get it built as quick as possible.
Thank you.
Okay. Any other questions?
I've got a handful.
Yes.
Yeah, I've got a number 2.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Ted, you start.
So back in 2019, when Ben McAdams reopened the Oxbow, this was all pre-COVID that he announced that, and we're like $9 million into that building. But then, say the property's worth $20 million, we can't invest $20 million to revamp that building and have that many more beds and that facility. It seems like we're putting $400 million into a new building off that. That's just some high-level numbers that I just jumped off the page to me, that we're going to spend 4 or 100 times X what we could do to revamp Oxbow.
So back up just a second. You said Ben McAdams said it was going to be $9 million to get that building.
Oh, that's when it reopened. We invested over $9 million from county funds.
To get
back
it
in
functioning
19.
again.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So say it's $20 million to revamp it, the cost of what we could sell it for. I think that's a pretty good investment.
To actually bring it up to what
Oh,
we
to
need.
bring it up to code,
ahead.
there's $40 million of deferred maintenance that it would take to reinvest into it.
Okay, that's still 100 times less than 4 million, 400 million. That's a lot of money to build a new.
Yeah,
10 times less, sorry.
I mean, to further the math argument here, right, as you said that the cost it would take to bring it up, so 40 million.
Was the
would
value.
Would be the value of the building. Are you
Yeah,
saying that
right now,
value
the
of the
deferred
building
maintenance
would be
is-
far higher than
Yeah.
40 million.
The deferred maintenance is about twice as much as the value of the building itself.
Well, the
You
20
sell
million,
it.
20 million, you're selling the land.
You're selling
not the
land.
building. The building is worth far more
Yeah.
than that as well.
You're paying
The
10
building and property.
10
That's
million
true.
to demolish
Just,
it.
you're selling it for 20 million with no building.
Well, plus they're taking
Well,
10 million.
we're
to
demolishing the
demolish
building
it.
for another
They're
10
only
million.
getting 10 million.
Right, so again, to further his argument, right, or his point, the value of the building, put $40 million in the building, the value of that building is much higher than the $20 million bare land.
Actually, it's only $10 million for bare land
After it
because
costs
they're
a
going to
demo.
cost
Well,
10 million to
call
bear
it, call it 10,
to
yeah,
10.
but the value of the building is much higher than 40.
So we went through a study with the company, it's called CGL. They specialize in criminal justice systems around the country. They just handled the reform for Baltimore, Maryland. They came in and they did an assessment of all of our structures. And the state of the Oxbow building itself is, in their opinion, is really not worth the investment.
No,
I'm not arguing with you.
Okay.
I'm trying to clarify what you're trying to say. 'Cause
Yeah,
what
the
you said is
numbers.
not factually not correct, right? What I'm interpreting what you're saying is that you're throwing good money after bad, year after year after year. It's going to cost a lot more to keep that building than to tear it down and build it.
Yeah.
Just so you know, if we were to even invest that in, that would only buy us at most 10 years. And then we would be having this discussion again, so.
Right. But to say that
It's still far less.
the statement made
yeah.
is not accurate.
Yeah.
Okay.
The other, what is the roadmap number 2 if this bond doesn't pass?
Roadmap number 2, okay.
What's the
What's
contingency
plan B?
plan if the tax?
Plan B is we come back with a higher interest rate loan because we're going to have to add on to the jail one way or the other, really. I think what most people don't understand is we prefer geo bonds They're much lower interest rates. We like to bring it to the vote of the people. That's what we need to do. We'll have to bring it back. We've got to add to our jail regardless, one way or the other. So if you don't like the Justice and Accountability Center and the savings of that, then we'll come back with a bigger amount and tell you this is what we need. This is saving us space and money per day per person in the jails. I mean, you're talking quite a bit. So we come back and bond, and next time it's more because we're down the road still. And we're still rolling people out of the jail, and we're still not holding people like we need to and getting them the help that they need to not be coming back every time with the recidivism.
Yeah, one last question. The cost savings per day
Yes.
seems great, quick on paper. Is that at total capacity? Is that at beds full where we calculated that, or is
I
that
believe
current
that's
rates?
what we, yeah, that's what we
Beds full.
figured out.
Okay,
Yes.
we're at max capacity. Okay.
And we're at max capacity now, so.
Not technically, because you have 200 beds that aren't being used because you don't have staff for them, or you don't have the adequate facility at Oxbow to keep that. And then, so you're not at full capacity at beds at both facilities?
At both facilities?
Yeah.
No, well, we're not using part of Oxbow.
Correct, yeah.
Right.
That's, yeah. But you'll gain those beds in the new facility and for the cost savings, okay. Yeah.
That is correct. We are not using all the beds at Oxbow. Okay.
I'm just going to piggyback on Sherry's question. I like to do the devil's advocate thing, right? So this kind of goes back to my questioning of the garbage board. I work with PD and UFA and the city, the thorn in the side financially. At some point,
Can you talk a little closer to your phone? We can't hear you.
sorry, I'm the thorn in the side, especially on the financial stuff.
Oh.
So, devil's advocate, right? So the taxpayers say, no, we can't do it, which is what we're hearing from them. We can't afford more. We can't.
Right.
And I apologize, it came straight from other meetings. I usually have my property tax stuff here to show you, but I just went over it with Chief yesterday. When I moved to Harriman in 2009, my total property tax, $3,800. This year, the proposed is $7,200. You guys know the way property tax works, so I won't go into depth on that. That's every one of those agencies. That's not Harriman City. Harriman City in 2009 was, correct me if I'm wrong, Chief, it was $99 and change. And in this year, 2024, it is $119 and change. We've never changed the tax rate, right? That's just the equalization thing. No. Same house, right? So of that $7,200, Harriman gets $119. The rest of it goes to the school district and the county, more or less, right? And then we have public safety, which now we control, and we haven't had increases there. My overall point is that people are looking at that going, when we talk about housing affordability, property tax is a giant part of that. Take $7,200 divided by 12, that's a third of my actual mortgage payment now, right? So we're talking about real money. It drives me crazy. I know everybody does it. It's only this many dollars per month or per year or whatever, but it's real money, and every one of those places does it. At some point, you reach this taxable saturation point where people don't have any more to give, and they're going to say no because we don't have it, right? So for me, the question is, if the people say no, because that's what they're telling us on everything else, find other ways to be efficient, et cetera, I don't think any of us will argue the need for what you're talking about.
Right.
But if there's only so much money, what is the county's plan to look at other funding sources? Because you can't keep going back to a dry well, right? If our plan is just to try to get all this pay for this with new money from taxpayers who are tapped out, that's where you'll run into the roadblock, either now or just a little bit down the road.
So actually, we've done some work on that already. So let me talk about that really quickly. One of the big changes that really helps us as a jail system right now, and Matt, you can probably talk to this as well, is right now, all the costs come out of our pockets. So as a county, we can't recoup the costs from Medicare, Medicaid, if they're on that when they come in. We have to pay that straight out of our pocket for all of their needs. We got the law and worked with the state to get that changed, and the federals, so that we could actually, for the last 90 days that they're in jail, we can now bill Medicare and Medicaid for those services of both, right? Yeah, for those services of what they need for mental health and health and those type of things, for those services, and recoup some of those costs. So that's a big one, and that actually is one of the big savings we're going to see in the Justice and Accountability Center because of the way that's set up. We can do that there as well. We can also, we're working with the legislature on recouping some of those costs. I know they're looking at lowering what's being paid out for behavioral health from the state and from the federal level. And so we're in the process of saying, you can't do that. If you do that, then that's just going to fall back to the taxpayer and the burden of us for people that we don't have a choice. We have to house. That's what we're told, right? It's part of our job. I think people don't understand that 74%, and it may be a little higher now, of our budget at Salt Lake County is nothing but criminal justice. That's it. All the other things we do fits in the last small percentage. So you look at what we do with criminal justice, and that is what pays for that, 74% of the Salt Lake County budget. That's a lot. And so we're looking for ways of bringing that down and looking for systems. Right now, if we don't do anything different, then we'll have to roll more people out because we don't have space. And as we grow and we keep going, we'll just, I'm sorry, but the streets won't be as safe, and we're struggling with that now. We're seeing the numbers, we're seeing things. I live in Kearns. I'm a single mom that lives in Kearns. I can talk to you about how much it's going to hurt my household and my family and what our property taxes have done out there. And everybody is raising taxes. I understand that. I really do. If we had not found a way of keeping that cost by the double tranches and those things, bringing it down, they wouldn't even have my support. Because this is difficult. Raising and giving people an opportunity to make that decision for themselves that this is important to them. I think that's part of what we're here to do. That's why we chose to do a GO bond. It's lower interest rate, that's great. I mean, most cities, most counties can actually go out and do revenue bonds and then they just raise your taxes and you don't have a say. We don't believe that's the right way to go about this. We think people need to be able to have a say. They need to decide if this is something that's important to them. If they say no, then we right now go back to the way things are and we try to find another solution. I can tell you it's going to be a lot more expensive. We have put pencil to paper on this one. We've looked at ways of bringing in other revenue streams to help offset costs here. This is as low as we could get it, and I'm telling you right now, we really, really worked hard on that.
I'm not disputing that. None of us
I
are
understand that.
questioning that
I'm just
at all.
explaining where we're at now.
I think that Sherry, I don't want to speak for you, right?
Go
But
ahead.
my question that stems from it is, and it's a real one because we saw it happen with the Jordan School District not too many years ago,
Yes.
where the taxpayer said, no, we want you to prove to us that you're using our other money
Right.
wisely, right? And those tax savings. So there's just a possibility that happens.
Mm-hmm.
None of us, I'm definitely not disputing the needs
Right.
that you're citing. It's
I'll
just
be
simply,
honest.
It's just simply how do you pay for it and how do you sustainably pay for it? Because at some point you can't squeeze a dry rag anymore.
Yes. And we actually had that exact same discussion. I think the biggest struggle we have right now is we keep getting more things tossed at us like you guys do by the state. Pay for this, pay for that, pay for this, pay for that. The county's in that same boat. If I thought we had any kind of hidden money anywhere, I'd be using that first. I feel like we've gone through the budgets really well. I feel like we've dug through. We are looking at some for part of the Justice Accountability Center to offset operations. There are some grants and things that we can get. We're going after those even as we speak for the jail now, and we're looking at other options that way as well. We're looking for everything we can do to keep this as low as possible. And this was the option we were able to come up with in this case scenario. If we have to go back for a second round at that, I don't know what that's going to look like. I'll be honest. This is our best shot we put together and what we thought was going to be our best option. So,
Steve, did you have more questions?
Yeah, I have several. First of all, Chairman Sherman, thank you so much for coming down. We appreciate your time and coming and making the case to us as representatives of the residents and citizens here of Harriman City. And so when we're asking questions, I think Councilmember Henderson made this point when talking to Pat, is we sometimes ask some hard questions. We're just trying to do our job and creating accountability for all of these decisions. So I'm going to ask some questions that hopefully we can help provide some clarity on a few things here. So.
yeah.
So a couple things is, and this might be me pontificating just a little bit here, so I beg your pardon, there's two things. Number one is that in political parlance, we talk a lot about if it's state money or county money or city money or federal money or Medicare money or this money or that money.
It's all our money.
It's all our money.
I know.
And it doesn't matter which bucket it comes from, it's coming out of our pockets.
Right.
And so, although I appreciate that we can say, oh, we're going to have some cost savings because it's going to come from Medicare, that doesn't help me. I'm still paying for the Medicare bucket, and I'm paying for the county bucket, and the state bucket, and the city bucket, and every other bucket. So, the second thing is that, and this isn't specific to the county or anybody, is that I often see actions, programs, legislation, ordinances that look good, sound good, feel good, might be popular, but there's very little that is involved in the actual measurement of the doing of the good, if that makes sense. Mm-hmm. And that's the part that I really want to focus on. So when we talk about the current recidivism rate being 46%, with this new JAC and these new programs, what is the target reduction in recidivism rate that we would expect? Would we see a 5% reduction, a 10% reduction, cut that in half? What is the result of this going to be on that recidivism rate?
Do we know what they were seeing in Miami-Dade? Do you remember what they told us there? I wasn't there for that meeting. I know that they were seeing, by making the changes, they were seeing a reduction. I'm not sure the amount, but I'm going to get that information to you. And I apologize. I should know that, but I don't know what that model is, and we're not doing that exact model because we do things different here in Utah.
Completely understand. And it's not a matter of, they're just, if we're not measuring the accomplishment of the doing, then we're just throwing money out there and hoping and praying, and that's not necessarily a great strategy for taxpayer funds.
Just be aware, one of the things we are doing is we are going to be asking for metrics all the way along. If something's not working, we're not going to continue doing it, right? The county council's been very good about really starting to dig into metrics and making sure we're catching those. Our Jill dashboard has a lot of information on it. You can go there and it gives you an updated count every day on where we're at and what we're doing currently.
Okay.
We intend to keep that going and include all of the numbers from this so that there is measurable numbers and actually that you can see on a daily basis where we're at and over a period of time, we expect that to be tracked.
Yeah, and this is something that I've been pushing internally as a city that we do, and is to understand the financial implications of some of the decisions we're making, right? So if we see a 3% reduction in the recidivism rate, what does that equate to in cost savings, right? If it's 10%, what does that equate to in cost savings? And I'd love to see some data around that.
Yeah, and we, in addition to recidivism, we'll look at other measures of success. We're doing things differently with this whole, it's a reform. It's not just a program to reduce recidivism. It's a way to change things drastically.
Thank you, because that's my follow-up questions is, what is the target in the reduction of the homeless population? Are we going to go from 1,000 to 900 or 500, right? What is the cost savings in the reduced trips back and forth between the buildings every day? Yes, we're going to save $22,500 per person, and if the jail was fully used, that's $7 million in savings. But what are the increased O&M costs with 500 more beds and all of these other things? Are we actually saving any money, or are we increasing our costs? That's not going to be part of the capital bond, but it's going to be part of the O&M budget for the county to pay for that on an ongoing basis, right? So when we start parsing these out into, and I understand we're trying to make the case and support for the bond, and I get that, but there's a lot of data that's missing in here that would clarify, at least for me, what the impacts of this are. If we're saying we're going to save money, but it's actually going to cost $30 million a year more in overhead costs, we're not saving money, we're increasing costs by $23 million. Does that make sense? And so I want to make sure that as a representative for the constituents that elected me to this position, that I'm at least able to address them saying, hey, this is what this bond is actually going to do for us, and this is what it's going to cost us to accomplish that. And right now I hear more in platitudinal language instead of specific data points. And that's the part that I'd really love to see more of.
Write down platitudinal. That's
Well, just to help there. So that's not just for us, and I think where Steve's coming from is right as just a regular voter, right? So as a council, we're not going to make a declaration to our residents that we think you should vote for this or you shouldn't. If someone asked me personally, I mean, prior to today, I've seen the advertisements floating around, right? It's the same bullet points and things on social media and whatever else, but that's it. There's no other information I can really get to readily to show me what this money is really being used for, right? And how it's actually going to benefit us. So just, I'm not asking you to provide that to me right now and say, oh, well, we have all of that. I'm saying you have to go sell this to the public. And as a reasonably, I'd say, higher educated person on how these things work than my neighbors, I couldn't explain it to them.
I would also add, I always say words have power, right? One of the very first slides that you showed in your homelessness goal was no repeating homelessness. In my mind, it's an unattainable goal. It's a pie in the sky, I wish this would happen, because there are simply people who choose to be homeless. And you don't get to take away their option for that choice. And so I always get discouraged or dissuaded by taglines like that, never repeat homelessness, because it's not real. And we have to function in a reality.
If you change it to the involuntary homelessness to be frequent and understood, that would be
exactly. Same as like many times I see our county rec centers as advertised as free. To me, that's so disrespectful to the tax-paying public. It's all over in the county resources. Those are free resources. Those are not free. You guys have chosen to spend taxpayer money to open up those facilities to allow people to come and use those. Again, well, maybe some of that funding could go towards your jail problem, those kind of things. Those kind of words are really difficult for me when I read things like that, because again, like you talked about earlier, this all comes out of our pockets, no matter if it's where it comes from. It's coming out of, it's real money to people who are struggling. Go to the grocery store. It's staggering, the cost that's hitting us right now. So those are the things that make this a really hard sell. Not that because it's not, wow, this would be great if we could have this. This would really help take care of some of these situations. But you guys are in the same situation we're always in. We have gazillion acres of parklands, not quite that many, but we can afford to put parks in. You know, so here's our pie in the sky. We want all these places to be great parks, but we don't have the funding to do it. So we have to scale back and look what's realistic for what we actually can strap onto our public.
Right.
Any more questions? I'm trying to stick to the topic, and we've got so much else coming on.
Sorry.
So
One last statement. Thank you for coming and spending the time with this. This has helped me understand better. My last comment, and I don't want to put words in your mouth either, Steve, is that we're trying to understand, and knowing what I know about public safety, we do need to do something.
Yeah.
I need to understand if this is the best way to do it or not. I have a lot more questions about the other programs that I've looked at that one and I'm like, holy crap, I can understand the bond for a building, but this is a big price tag for more programs, right? Those sorts of things. So in an effort to kind of help you, this is at the end. I mean, you guys have gone through all these things.
The bond is only bricks and mortar.
Yeah, it's just the
Yeah,
capital,
it's not
not
gonna-
the O&M.
But I will say that one of the things that I think might be helpful for you to understand is most of those services exist, but they're not in the same location. So we're bringing them in so that they're in a location where they can now do it. So we're not adding a ton of services. We're actually making our services more efficient and effective, if that makes sense.
Force multipliers are great. I mean, I'm a
Yes.
big proponent of all of the thinking that's going in behind this. I think you
Right.
guys are
sure.
approaching it from a good standpoint. You've gone out and done research. You've gotten input from what are best practices and other, and I appreciate all of that good approach. Just from a
informational
Yeah.
standpoint, being able to provide those data points. We're at this. We believe that with this would be our new target. This is why we think this would work, and this is how we're going to improve this.
And I'll
this
be
is
honest,
gonna help
we
save
could
these things.
suppose that and kind of extrapolate that, and those are some of the things that we've had some discussions on behind the scenes. The problem is if I say we're going to go 18% and we're 17, everybody's going to be mad at me for not hitting 18.
And I totally understand. I totally understand the
I'm happy
threading the
to
needle.
say, maybe I can give you a range and things like that, and I will get some additional information
Yeah,
to you
but
on
if we
that.
said it's going to be between 10 and 20%, and we're at 3, then we'd be asking questions about why didn't we get what we were hoping for? What can we do to be more effective? And then we're having an ongoing accountability against a goal rather than accountability against a platitude, if that makes sense.
And just so you're aware, we've asked all those questions. Everything you just asked, I've been asking, and I was part of the process, and I was still asking, right? The bottom line for me is we're getting the information out. I could spend like 7 hours going over all that information with you. And I'd be happy to do that if you really want to do that, because there is a lot to cover. We want to give you what we can when I come out now. I didn't put this together, but it's what was sent out. We've had 3 different iterations of this. Some of them have more platitudes than others.
We get it.
So we're looking. We're like, which one did we get this time? We just did a different one at a different place. Yes, unfortunately, this was the first version, probably because they sent it out to you, and we didn't get it updated, so I apologize. But there's a lot more information we can get you, and we will get that updated to you. And we will do our best to actually get some additional information out to the public as well, because I think that'll be helpful. We do have a website we're trying to get things up on and make sure that that's got a lot of this information. And you've given me some additional questions. I'm like, we need to put that on there, We'll look at that as well.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Catherine, you got last word. Yep.
Chair Stringham was in the position you are, and we had really robust discussions for weeks with the county council about this, and they asked very tough, great questions, much like you are today, very concerned about being fiscally responsible and taking care of their constituents. And so I appreciate it. And I want to just say there were a few things that the council, that I heard when the discussions were happening, that in the operation, so it's up to $507 million for the construction, and that is a cap. So they charged us to say also in the planning to look at every effort to reduce that amount. In addition, just being so fiscally responsible and setting aside $100 million in order to move forward the lowest amount towards taxpayers in this, to build these buildings, was really, really just smart on their side to make sure that we were putting forward the lowest amount. And then in addition, in order to really support it, they said, we want to make sure that we're not going to come back to taxpayers again and say, we need to operate this and we need to raise taxes in order to do that. And we heard that loud and clear. And we do have projected budgets. We do have impacts. We have cost savings system-wide on a large scale. And what we're trying to do is get some general understanding to our taxpayers so they can make an educated decision right now, knowing that if it does pass and if it is something that the taxpayers choose to vote for in the ballot, immediately we're going to look at the plan and everything and reassess to say, did we have it right? What do we need to do further? Do we need more step-down beds in the jail expansion and reduce the jack? We'll take another, sharpen our pencils and look and make sure we're doing it right. And certainly want to make sure we're looking at all buckets to make sure that the cost to our taxpayers is as low as possible, because we are filling it. The ballot is long and hard, and we want to make sure that we're doing everything we can to be smart about it. So I just wanted to reiterate that, because she's now out championing it and speaking to it, but she was doing exactly what you were doing.
Way more than you.
Yeah. And we would love to speak further about it, knowing that we do have $100 million set aside to take care of things. If the bond doesn't pass, we're going to look at what we can do with what we have. We're going to continue to look at our plan, how we can work with our partners at every level of government and every nonprofit, every private business, to make sure we're working together to improve our communities. So the work won't stop. but we'll just have to regroup and see what we can do to achieve the goal in a different way.
And one last thing, and we'll wrap up real quick. Just know, this is not the only place we're looking at cuts and things. The county council is literally sitting down and saying, all right, let's look at the entire county. And we've already started that process. When I came on 4 years ago, we realized there are some things that maybe we shouldn't be doing anymore. What does that look like? Maybe there are programs that are not as effective. Where do we cut those? We've already started that process. I mean, everybody was on contras last year for quite some time. We, just
That's
know.
what you need to lead with. That's what people want.
And so I would love to sit down and tell you the whole plan for the county and how this all works into that, because it's more than just even the health and human services. We've got a plan in place to bring all of it within what we hope is a range to be able to offset the different costs and rein in some other things. So,
Thank you.
Perfect.
yeah.
Thank you, Councilmember Stringham, Catherine,
Thanks,
Chief.
guys.
Thank you for being here tonight. We appreciate your work.
I know we're over.
We appreciate your time
Yeah,
tonight.
thank you for coming.
Could we leave some one-pagers for any of your constituents, or if you want to send those as well?
Absolutely.
All right. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Catherine.
See, staff, we ask the same questions that we
It's not-
asked you too. So.
It was nice to
Just so you
see
know, we're
somebody
not
else.
picking on you when we
I
ask.
see somebody else
Taking
be
it.
the, yes.
The whipping post.
Okay, we'll move on to item 9.1, consideration. It's a public hearing tonight. Consideration of approval of the Mountain Ridge Park design. Bryce.
Okay, good evening, Mayor and Council. So I'll try to keep it short, but I'll answer any questions that may come up. So Mountain Ridge Park is a project that is coming up that has kind of been, some of the groundwork has been already established through a master development agreement with Edge Homes, who is developing Mountain Ridge subdivision. So yeah, let's kind of jump into the plans here of where that is and what we're planning to do there. So Mountain Ridge Park, like I said, in the Mountain Ridge subdivision, which is right at the corner of Harriman, where we kind of border Riverton and Bluffdale. So that's that line right where the circle is the new 138th South road that now connects in, well, will soon connect into Bluffdale and Riverton. It's built and so yeah, it's in this little corner. And a little background, Riverton has also worked with the Edge development on their side of the city border, to also develop a 10-acre park, kind of in a reflection of the one that we're working on right now. So, like I said, just under 10 acres, and we have an established budget. So for this park, we tried to kind of get the most that we could within that budget, while maintaining a contingency within the budget to allow us to build as much as we can, but even leave space in the future if there's more funding available to improve and add amenities as funding comes in. So we'll kind of talk about those amenities that are our first plan to go in this project. So 27 parking spots is about what you're looking at there. A playground, a pretty large playground, a pavilion, and a restroom. And then the entire thing will be landscaped with sod and irrigation for open space. You can kind of see the rectangle there for multi-use fields. There is an enormous detention pond as part of this project that was agreed to in the MDA as part of this park. It will be sod so that area can be used as an activity zone. One thing to mention is that our engineering standards actually require a low flow system now in any detention pond that's big enough for activity like this one. So that means essentially all the small storms that come will actually mostly bypass the pond and go into our storm drain system, which in turn means that you're left without a wet bottom or a soggy bottom of the pond, and you have that less often, right? We're trying to avoid that. So although we're not showing field space in the pond, because in the bigger storms it will fill up. That is its main purpose, is to detain water, slow the flow before it goes into the systems and the creeks. For the majority of the smaller storms, it will actually not impact that area, and there's the potential for that to be a play area or sports fields in the future, but we're not showing that here. Additionally, there is the asphalt trail that was already built here on the east edge, kind of just west of where you're seeing those trees being placed and just west of the Welby-Jacobs Canal. As you probably know, Riverton is working on a very long section to connect into our trail system here. With the 138th roadway project, there was a raised crosswalk with some flashing lights or RFBs to allow to connect the two parks together, but also this long asphalt trail system that continues south even further of the park, continues through the Mountain Ridge development and down towards the RSL complex. So the idea is to connect it all together. Here's kind of a zoomed in view. So like I said, it is a lot of area that is open. We have the parking, the playground, the pavilion, and the restroom planned. But yeah. And then, so yeah, just some renderings. Like the note says here, these won't match the colors that we're planning on. We're still kind of working that out with parks and how we want to make those look. But this is kind of a representation of the pavilion, restroom, and playground that we'll see out there. So with that, I can answer any questions on the park.
Have any
questions? Nope.
My questions are always about the money, and that's later.
Right.
Yes.
Always wish there was more money, right?
Yeah, it's just amazing how much money you spend to get
that
fairly limited
that.
park. You know
Yeah.
that.
Yep.
You got that. Yeah, exactly.
Right. Okay, thank you, Bryce. Todd says he has new stuff for a new video, so be prepared. Okay. We're going to now open the public hearing on this item. Seeing none, look for a motion to close the public hearing.
So moved. Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. Any discussion, further discussion? Seeing none, I'll look for a motion.
Make a motion to approve the proposed Mountain Ridge Park design plan.
Second.
Sherry, second by Steve. Not a roll call, right? I don't need a roll call. All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you, everybody. I'll make it easy then. Okay. Thank you, Bryce. Item 10, consent agenda. Look for a motion on the consent agenda. I'm done giving Steve a hard time. We're just going to move on.
Motion to approve the consent agenda as written.
Second.
Motion by Jared, second by Teddy. Jared?
Yes.
Teddy?
Yep.
Sherry?
Yes.
Steve?
Yes, but I have to make a comment.
Before or after?
Tried.
So sorry.
I tried, man.
So sorry. I know we've talked about this in previous meetings. I just want to make sure that people understand that the Block 1 and the Block 2 water purchase agreements, what those represent, what they mean. It's just water's expensive. We're doing the best we can, but the Block 2 water purchase, Justin, just to make sure, that's mostly going to be for Olympia, is that correct? Or are they going to have a separate water block rate?
No, so the Block 2 water agreement is 100% just for the Olympia area.
Just for the, okay, that's what I thought.
Any new
Yeah,
annexed
so it's based on
lands.
their annexation. Jordan Valley, in their policies, 2021, they adopted any new annexation areas will have a higher water rate for new annexed areas. So this is a newly annexed area since they made that rule. And so they will have, it's just for 100% Olympia. The water metering that's done in Olympia will be 100% separate. Their water rates, as I mentioned in the staff report, accommodate for those higher water rates. So this is specifically just for them.
That'll be separate for that. The Block 1 rates are part of what is impacting our water rate increases that we've talked about, right?
Correct.
Okay, just trying to reiterate that because people are going to see this and just pass over it, but this is an important thing that we're voting on today.
And part of the Block 1, the increase to our total overall contract, a large portion of that was the decision to utilize the Jordan Valley water during winter. So
to offset the water hardness.
Yes, and then obviously our growth. So
sure. Okay, thank you, Justin. I appreciate it. Sorry.
Welcome.
Thank you.
Just wanted to make that clear.
Vote yes or no?
I did. I voted.
You voted yes, and I'll vote yes, so that motion carries. Okay, item 11.1, consideration to amend Chapter 10-15, Article E, Sports and Entertainment Mixed Use Overlay Zone of the Harriman City Ordinance. Blake?
Wait for this to come up. So, yeah, this is the text amendment to our sports entertainment mixed use overlay zone. And the question is, should the council approve this? And I'll start off with the current overlay zone. It was written in 2017, very specific to the Real Salt Lake Training Academy. It basically stated that all the uses in the underlying zone were allowed, and one additional permitted use was allowed, a 5,000 seat stadium. And then it had some other specific requirements like the 100 acres, and it had some allowance for signage. That's why you see the large message boards along Mountain View Corridor down by RSL. So with some interest in some other areas of the city, maybe being used for sports entertainment use, we started looking at what were options for that. And the C2 zone would have been an option, but there are a lot of requirements for brick and stone, and there's requirements that would really push the cost up and make it prohibitive for some of these uses because they're not generating the type of revenue that like a retail business would. So we were kind of looking, there's been some council direction to the staff through the general plan adoption to try to make some sports-focused developments that would bring tourism to the city and interest to the city, bring people in to spend their dollars in our businesses and spend some time here and enjoy the community. So we tried to accomplish that with the text amendment, and then we wanted to kind of broaden out the permitted uses within there, not just a 5,000 seat stadium and 100 acres. So we brought the acreage requirement down. We allowed for a handful of uses, as you can read in there, and one that the Planning Commission made a motion to change from what was presented to them was the personal care services, and that's allowed as a accessory use to one of these other uses in there, so that if there was like a hair salon inside of one of these other baseball or basketball or whatever facilities, they could do something like that, or personal care service. We also worked with planning to identify some architectural standards so that we weren't just getting large flat concrete walls tilted up and sports facilities inside. And we also left the special allowance for signage, but you had to have a 5,000 seat stadium to have that, so that RSL is still in compliance, but that we're not allowing a bunch of extra signs wherever this zone may be placed. And the council passed the sign overlay not too long ago, which allows for larger signs along Mountain View Corridor, so that's pretty adequate for any type of signage. So what's happened to this point is the Planning Commission held a public hearing. There were no comments received. It was a unanimous recommendation from the Planning Commission to recommend approval for this, with that one change that I mentioned for the accessory use for personal care services. And staff recommends approval of this text amendment, and it really helps out the economic development efforts, helps us achieve some of the goals in our general plan, and just gives staff and council, the whole city, another tool to encourage these type of development projects. So be happy to answer any questions you may have at this time.
Any questions? Okay, seeing none, look for a motion.
Okay. Motion to approve ordinance number 2024-24, amending the Title 10, Chapter 15, Article E of the Harriman City Code relating to the sports and entertainment mixed-use overlay zone.
Motion by Sherry.
Second.
Second by Jared. Steve?
Yes.
Sherry?
Yes.
Teddy?
Yes.
Jared?
Yes.
And I'll vote yes. That motion carries. Thank you. 11.2, consideration to amend the Harriman City zoning map by applying the sports and entertainment mixed-use overlay zone to property generally located between Miller Crossing Drive and Midas Creek and between Harriman, Maine and Mountain View Corridor. Blake?
I hit a typo in this presentation, so if you find it, I'll give you a piece of candy.
Nice. Nice.
So this item is to apply the recently approved sports entertainment mixed-use overlay zone to a specific location within the city. So the location is right along Mountain View Corridor, south of Anthem Commercial Development, and north of Mountain View Plaza, as shown on the map. So should the council approve applying the overlay zone to the North Miller Crossing Drive? That's the question. When do you get the candy?
He tried to go over that real quick.
So this area, as depicted in the green, currently zoned AMSD, has a very limited use to it. We were contacted by a local business owner interested in creating a sports facility at this location, and we started, looking for locating within Harriman. And we were looking at areas that the city owned property, and we identified some property at this location the city owned. We brought an agreement to the council several months ago, a land transfer agreement, and that was approved. And then as we've worked with this area is under contract with another property owner. You can see Harriman 73 Partners over on the right, a portion of it. They were interested in also having this zone applied to this land. It provides a pretty good buffer between the Anthem Commercial and the Auto Mall, and is a great location with access right off the Mountain View Corridor. And there's nothing else on that one. So the land transfer agreement that we had required that this area be zoned or rezoned for the use, and that they submit a concept plan. So this is a pretty blocky concept plan, but gives you the idea of the things they're looking at. There's baseball facility, there's some outdoor fields and indoor field, there's basketball training facility that could double as a volleyball, hotel, restaurant pad. We've also had discussions, and this could be handled under a development agreement later on, with the detention basin being put underground and having some type of agreement where the city would maintain the stormwater in it, because the stormwater does come from the street, and then the users for the site would actually maintain the parking lot above it, and that could share parking and help us with some of those issues that you see in some of these sports venues. And like I said, this has commercial to the north, commercial to the south with restaurants, so this would be a great use to pull people in and help energize those businesses and help out with that aspect. So to this point, the approval process has been Planning Commission, public hearing on September 18th. We received no comments. They unanimously recommended approval of this item, and staff does recommend applying the sports entertainment mixed-use overlay zone to the North of Miller Crossing area as shown on the map on the previous slide. And if you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer them on this one as well. Representative for one of the sites, MLM Holdings, is here if you are interested in asking any questions too.
One of the sites, can you point, sorry, Steve, go ahead.
Go ahead.
I was gonna say, can you just point out which sites? I was just asking the attorney where we're at on the land, who owns the land, and where we are on the purchase agreement and all those sorts of things.
Okay. So the one piece has been transferred to MLM Holdings, and there were some triggers in that agreement that we're going to need to come back and amend because we've surpassed that time. But we knew that things were happening on the other end just slowly, so we haven't taken the property back or anything. There are 4 acres just to the kind of south and west of that property adjacent to it that we received a legal description for earlier this week. I sent them This was from Harriman 73 Partners. I sent them an email today saying we were good with that location, and that would expand the baseball facility to about 9 acres for that site. So they're working with their title company to prepare the closing documents and set up a closing right now on that piece. So that'd be 4 more acres. The rest of it is still under contract and with Harriman 73 Partners. And this 4-acre acquisition would satisfy their next required takedown, which would be required by May of 2025. So that would push their next takedown requirement to the following year. I think it's June 1st of 2026, and that would be the remainder of the property.
Perfect, thank you.
And just to clarify, and Todd, you speak to this too, is if we're changing the zoning of property that's under contract, is there any potential negative litigation outcomes from that, or have the people who have it under contract approved of this rezoning and waived any? I just am concerned there's some changing the zoning could change the anticipated value of the property, and our making this change could be impacting their investment and their commitment. Are we disrupting the REPC? Are we clear on this? Are we in the clear on this? That kind of thing.
Well, since this is an overlay zone, the underlying zone still applies. So this could just be put on top of it. So there shouldn't be any negative outcome as far as applying this overlay zone to the area.
Okay.
It's going to open fall 26, fall 25?
January.
As soon as possible.
Yeah.
Glad to have you, Mike.
Yeah.
Okay, I'll look for a motion then.
I'll make a motion to approve ordinance number 2024-25, amending the Harriman City zoning map by applying the sports and entertainment mixed-use overlay zone to 16.98 acres of the property located approximately 12225 South Harriman Main Street.
Second.
By Teddy, second by Jared. Jared?
Yes.
Teddy?
Yep.
Sherry?
Yes.
Steve?
Yes.
And I'll vote yes. That motion carries. We're all set, Mr. Mays. We're excited. So.
Build it, they will come.
We know, Mike, we know you've been working hard on this. We appreciate you. And
I appreciate
so.
everything y'all have done too. Really appreciate it. Thank you.
You're a great partner. We appreciate it. Okay, 11.3, discussion and consideration of an agreement to defer payment of building permit fees for a proposed hotel in Anthem Commercial Center. Blake?
3 in a row. So this is an agreement similar to what we did with Slackwater for a hotel in the Anthem development, just north of Miller Crossing, where we were just talking. So just off of Denali Park Drive by the Winco. So the agreement overview on this one is Planning Commission has granted approval for this hotel. Engineering's reviewed the site plans. They're approved. They're ready to go. They have delivered their building plans to the building department. They are reviewing the building plans. Found another typo. And and so when we receive the building plans, we receive evaluation and we determine their building fees, building review fees. And so the fees were pretty high, kind of shocking to them, but we knew that they can lower their traffic impact fee by doing a traffic impact study. And we're in the process of conducting a building fee study. And we're in the very tail end of it. And so we anticipate that our building department review fees should be decreasing as well. And so with that knowledge of potentials, this agreement would defer their fees except for what their prepayment amount was, which has been paid and the plans are under review right now. Would defer the rest of the payment. Normally we would require that payment before we would issue a building permit. It would defer it and we'd be able to issue the building permit and then they'd be required to pay whatever that difference is, and things may be decreased according to the building fee study and the traffic impact study. But it just doesn't hold anything up. It keeps things moving for them because they're going to be a longer build, probably an 18 to 24 month build, which was also reflected in the agreement that they'll either pay it they have about 2 years, or when they decide to get their C of O, whichever comes first. So with that knowledge, staff recommends approval of this agreement as well. Just reduces delays, and there's minimal risk to the city on this one. 60% of that fee was the traffic impact and fee. So we anticipate with their study, they'll be able to decrease that minimally. But if they don't decrease it, they'll still have to pay it according to this agreement.
Okay.
Is there any potential of increase from our base fees, or?
We'd probably just charge what I don't think they would submit the study to me if it increased. Okay. They'd probably just keep it, so. But no, we'd just charge what was required by the code.
Just a quick comment, as I always say, public consumption. The tax revenue we receive from the hotel.
You pull your microphone down, I'm sorry.
I keep moving away so you don't hear all the side comments
I know.
that I make. But the hotel taxes that we collect is essentially double what we would collect from sales tax, from cars, from anything else.
Yeah, it's awesome.
So having hotels within the city limits is better than just about anything else we could do. We need all the other things to make it all work, but fantastic.
Yeah, it is fantastic.
Looks good, too.
And the city is made whole on the expenses that will incur. It's just over a period of time, and the revenue generation will be fantastic.
Excited. Okay. Let's do this. Look for a motion.
Motion to approve a building permit fee agreement to defer impact fees for proposed hotel in the Anthem Commercial Center.
Second.
Motion by Jared, second by Teddy. Jared?
Yes.
Teddy?
Yep.
Sherry?
Yes.
Steve?
Yes.
And I'll vote yes, that motion carries. Thank you, Blake. Item 11.4, discussion and consideration of their proposed amendments to Title 10 of the City Code to regulate the outdoor storage of recreational and accessory vehicles on private property. Clint, welcome.
All right. It has been a long, drawn-out process, but we're hoping to get the horse across the finish line tonight. And
Yeah,
if you
Mayor
need to
gets up
take a
and
minute.
leaves for this one, sure.
Terrible.
I'll try not to be offended. Try not to take that personally. So this is for the accessory vehicle storage ordinance. It's been
That's sick.
being worked on for quite some time. Originally, this was part of a boxcar bill, as we call it, where there were several amendments to our zoning ordinance to help code enforcement issues. This was one that was apparently felt to be, that needed a little more attention, a little more detail to it, so it was pulled aside and became its own entity. We've been discussing it since at least February of this year with the council. There have been a lot of revisions, and we're hoping what we bring tonight is reflective of what the council would like to see. So some of the intents for the ordinance rewrite is to simplify enforcement and make it easier to enforce certain situations that are taking place in the city, protect neighborhoods from unsafe and unsightly storage, and to really just balance out our approach to RV storage in the city. So currently there are some issues that are not covered in our current ordinance. That would be access, so where people are parking them in the backyard and they're accessing off of a side that doesn't have a driveway, they're driving across the curb, or they're parking them on their side yard and driving them through over the curb that way, damaging public infrastructure, and causes the city repairs. Storage on the lot where it can be, and what kind of, does it need to be a pad, can it be on the grass, can it be dirt? And then the number of RVs or accessory vehicles as well, that is not addressed, and then the type. Utility versus RVs. And initially, this got started as recreational vehicles, and then we thought it'd be wise to address both utility vehicles, such as utility trailers and those kinds of vehicles in this ordinance as well, and then screening, the screening element. There are a couple of existing ordinances that are currently in place to kind of regulate this right now. This ordinance would just kind of add to what is already in place and provide a little more specificity in regulation. So our recommendation is to approve what we're presenting tonight, and I hope to accomplish all the following standards here. Essentially, to make code enforcement a lot easier, protect public aesthetics, and comply with the general plan. along with some other things. So one of the first things that the ordinance does is defines, and this is for information, I know that we've talked about with the council about this, but anybody listening that is interested, this is some information about the ordinance itself. But one of the first things it does is defines what is and what is not a recreational vehicle. And you can see some of the examples here. Individual, I think we call them UTVs, so individual jet skis or four-wheelers, those are not included as a recreational vehicle. And then in this bottom one, even though that middle picture of a utility trailer would not be considered a recreational vehicle, it still is considered as an accessory vehicle and counts towards the maximum number of accessory vehicles you can have on your lot. This is just some depictions of how access should be provided for accessory parking, whether it's adding, increasing that drive approach on your existing driveway, or if you have it coming off the side. Another part, the major part of the ordinance that it accomplishes is stating giving a maximum number of accessory vehicles that can be on a property. Between 0 and 1/4 acre, you can have up to 4. Between 1/4 and 1 acre, you can have 6, and then 1 to 5 acres is 8. So anything in yellow is something that we've changed since our last discussion, just to clarify that. And then 5+ acres is 10 total. We removed, as it came through the Planning Commission, there was a provision that said you can only have a certain amount of certain types of recreational or accessory vehicles. That was removed. And then we removed the cosmetic language, so it just has to be in good working order. And then we removed or referred any noise issues to the noise ordinance. Some of the other changes, storage is just to be weed-free. There is no improved surface required except for the home occupation, and I'll get to that in just a minute. They added language to to restrict construction, but allow the remodeling of RVs. And speaking with a councilman today, there was maybe some discussion that needs to be had in terms of allowing construction on property. Anyways, moving forward, there's required tracking pad onto public streets, excluded ag vehicles from the count total if they are using the ag vehicles actively on their property. There's no screening requirements, again, except with a home occupation, and then RVs are allowed to hook up to city services when they are locating a recreational vehicle on a lot for home construction. And there are certain permits that they'd have to acquire from the sewer district and the city as well. So as part of this ordinance, there is an included exception. So if you want to exceed the number that is provided you on your residential lot, you can do so up to the amounts shown here on the screen. But in doing so, it does require you would have to go through a home occupation license process, which is a conditional use. So anybody who wants to exceed will have to go to the Planning Commission for approval, and they'll have to show that they're meeting all of these requirements here in terms of fencing, paving. They can't have any occupancy of accessory vehicles, maintain them in good repair, and no parking closer than 3 feet to an adjacent property. In terms of impact, most of the lots in Harriman are less than 1/4 of an acre, getting up into that half-acre range. So, you're looking at 4 to 6 or accessory vehicles on most lots in Harriman. So, just a quick summary. Again, the ordinance hopes to define. The ordinance defines what RVs and accessory vehicles are. It gives consistent standards for all single-family zones. They're only allowed as an accessory use. It limits them based on the lot size, gives regulations for driveway widening, allows them only behind the front of homes, and allows occupancy of RVs only with home construction, and then provides, again, that exception. And then with this as well, there will be no ordinance enforcement until 1 year after the adoption of the ordinance to allow residents to make accommodations or changes to their property to comply with the ordinance. When this came before the commission, it was recommended for approval unanimously. So if there's any questions, I'm glad to answer any final questions that we can take action on this tonight. So.
Okay, it's me. Okay, first of all, great job. Thank you for working on this. Thank you for working through all the craziness that comes out of me sometimes. The purpose, sometimes words have power to me again. Unsightly, it says, as recreational accessory vehicle ownership continues to be desirable for Harriman City residents, it is the intent of this ordinance to continue allowing that to occur while also protecting neighborhoods in the community from unsafe and unsightly accessory vehicle storage. For me, unsightly is such a undefinable term. I went to pick up my granddaughter to take her to school yesterday, and I had on the same t-shirt I had the night before, and I was unsightly to her. To me, it was not unsightly. But so it's just people's definitions of unsightly can vary so widely. I just assume not have it say that. I believe the ordinance is here to keep our community safe. It can just simply say in the community from unsafe accessory vehicle storage. Anyway, that's a very minor portion of it. In section A, it says outdoor accessory vehicle storage goes on. It says except when a permanent home, so I understand that completely, or other primary uses established on the property, or as specified below in C1. There is no C1. Just
probably an oversight. You caught the typo. I'll get you a piece of candy.
Yes, perfect. The only question I have on that, or concern I have on that, is I have several neighbors and people I know that have, over the years, bought their home on a parcel and have added additional parcels that are contiguous to their property. And really the way the ordinance reads, it would be, okay, where your home's only on a quarter of an acre, even though you own the other two next to you, so you only get 4 trailers. Do you see what I mean? Mm-hmm. Can it have language in it that allows it to be, as long as they own that and the property that they own is contiguously attached to where their home is located? Can we make that tweak to that? It shouldn't create any big problem, right? Maybe while we're talking, you can think of maybe some language to make that, because I don't want them to have to think, their property altogether is 2 acres or whatever it is, but they're limited to 4 because technically their home's only on a quarter of an acre. Does that make sense?
That
So
makes sense, yeah.
if we can maybe make that change, is anybody opposed to that?
On a roll, Sherry.
Okay, number C, it says, no storage of materials is permitted in any recreational vehicles. I'm not sure what that means. Materials, no storage of materials. So in your camper, maybe you have a cupboards full of paper, plates, and all that kind of stuff. What does no storage of materials mean?
This would be like materials that you use for like a home, or your home business or something like that, or you're putting in, construction materials or things that might be dangerous, flammable. You're putting gallons of gas in there or something like that.
Right. I understand what you think it means.
Could that mean hay in my horse trailer?
No. I mean, things that are custom, things that make sense to be in there. Like we're not.
No, but if I've got 20 or 30, 40, 50 bales of hay just for feed or whatnot. I mean,
yeah, because but then it's an ag use, so there's some provisions in there eliminates it. But I guess it's a little vague to me to say no storage of materials. It's like,
but if say my construction, I got a construction trailer, I'm going to put 2x4s material that's a use.
But that's a recreation. This is just for recreational vehicles.
Right. Okay.
So utility trailers, you can put all of your construction stuff in, sprinklers, construction, whatever material you need.
Okay.
This is strictly for recreational vehicles. So we could change that language to say.
I understand what the purpose. I'm just trying to think. It's vague to me. It's like because I understand exactly what you're saying. Why we don't want your camper trailer parked on your house is not intended to hold all your paint supplies in it, right?
20 gas cans.
Or becoming just another,
storage unit.
A storage unit.
Yeah,
right.
Exactly. So anyway, I don't know if it's necessary, but I had a little issue with that. And then we have talked quite a bit when we were talking about this last time, we talked about that I drive by many, many places that have a trailer parked in the front, that it's backed up into their driveway. Mr. Plumber down the street, he goes every day and uses a utility vehicle. He parks his utility trailer in his front yard because that's the only place he has to park it. Not yard, but in his driveway. Well, it's true. That's what Sam said, but the problem is that they're here. So we can't change that. And I understand the safety portion of that for sure. It's because now everybody's parking on the street because they used their driveway to park their trailer, and now they're on the street, and now we have issues with parking, all the problems that are associated with that. But it has been stated that currently you can't park in the front yard, but you can. In agricultural zones and FR2 zones, you can park your trailer in the front. So this changes that. And in residential zones, you can park as long as for 7 days. So I just want everyone to be 100% clear that this is a change to our current ordinance. We've talked about it's not changing because currently you're not allowed to park in the front, but you are, from what I've read. Am I incorrect?
No, you're not allowed to park it for more than 7 days in your front yard.
In a recreational zone, but what about?
In an agricultural or residential zone. That change was made with the boxcar bill last year.
Okay, perfect. So it changes from now 7 days, but then I wonder, what does that mean? Does that mean if I'm moving it every day to go to work, does my time clock start over?
If it moves every day, probably does.
So see, I mean, if you're using it for work and you're parking in your front yard, you can no longer do that. And so I tell you that it will impact people.
Does this override that current ordinance?
Yes.
Yeah. It will.
So I'm a little bit concerned about the impact that will have. The only good thing about it that I see that we can maybe start to analyze it is that we have a year, according to the last paragraph, that it says we're not going to enforce this right now. We're going to use that year to educate people. And maybe as a city, we start gathering information like, how negatively is this impacting our residents? Is this really causing problems with that? And then we can come back and address that and maybe make some changes to that before we actively enforce it. Anyway, that's my concern. Is I understand the concerns with code enforcement, all those kinds of things. And the more we grow and no side yards, there's no place to park your trailers. And then we're like, well, we don't want that guy with an empty lot to park trailers. There's so many things, right? But it will impact people that utilize that for their business or jobs and stuff like that. So it is a change. And if I was a person that was parking it there, I would feel I was in compliance if I'm using it every day because it's not parked there for 7 days straight.
And there have been, I think a lot of the ordinance is built off of complaints that we've gotten from residents. So people that live next door to those people that had, that storing things out front, that detracts from their quality of life. Right. So I think that part of the ordinance is trying to address those residents that live next door to these types of, storage areas.
For sure, and a visibility issue. If you're coming down the road or you're backing out of your driveway and your next door neighbor has a big trailer, you can't see beyond. I can't see it back out. I understand for sure on all that. I just would really like us to keep track of the impact that this is having over the next few months. So before that year is up and we're starting to enforce it, we can understand if there's some sort of tweak we need to make or those kinds of things. I called you this today about the construction of accessory vehicles because it says construction of accessory vehicles is not permitted in any ag, or forest recreational. Now, the intent of that is to make sure that you're not turning your backyard into a manufacturing zone. Totally get that. But I was telling him, my father-in-law made my four-wheeler trailer. He made my car trailer. My stepson has made trailers himself, just like in his garage or in his backyard. I could care less if somebody welds up a personal trailer in their backyard. But this would prohibit that. So could we do something that says something like in A it says repair, remodeling of personally owned AVs is permitted. Can we say construction, repair, remodeling of personally owned AVs is permitted?
I have no problem with hobby, right?
Yeah.
To me, again, where I draw the line is if somebody's using a residential
manufacturing
zone,
zone
for a commercial enterprise, then we need to go through the proper channel, right, to ensure the property rights of those around them. So if I bought a single family home and it's zoned that way, then I need to make sure that I'm counting on us to make sure that my peaceful residential life, right, is not impacted by somebody that wants to turn the house next door into a manufacturing plant.
Absolutely agree, and I understand exactly
So
the premise
I think
behind
you're
it.
right? There's no, I don't care if somebody's building something as a hobby. I do that stuff in my backyard all the time, so we shouldn't be telling them they can't do that. I just don't want it to be a commercial enterprise.
Right, but I think if we just added construction, repair, remodeling of personally owned AVs is permitted, do you think that that would kind of reel that in, or no?
I think in terms of enforcement, it might be difficult. So if you go up and you say, hey, you can't be building that on your property, well, I'm building it for my son, or I'm building it for, family, or I'm building it for whoever. I think that can, and that's the reason when we talked about renting or allowing family members to park on your property, and the inability of code enforcement to say, well, I want to pull the DMV records for all of your vehicles back there to see who owns them. I mean, we can't really do that. So that's the only difficulty I can see.
Yeah, no, I agree. But we're already allowing the repair and remodeling of personally, and you could do the same thing with that, right? That people flip vehicles like that all the time.
Right. Construction becomes maybe a little more intense of a use than maybe a remodel, but.
Anyway, so I'll look to you guys, see how you feel about that. I always try and err on the side of let them make a trailer if they need, and if we run into issues where it's obvious this person is running a manufacturing zone, then.
I think it's going to be complaint driven. Obviously, if they've got multiple trailers coming and going all the time, right? Like auto repair shop out of your garage is different than me fixing my wife's car or fixing the neighbor's car. But I mean, if you're sitting there welding a trailer up, putting a new hitch on your trailer, maybe that trailer just started out with an axle and you put side rails and then a hitch, and then, you could manufacture a trailer pretty easy and call it remodeling. So I think enforcement's the hardest part, and that was my question, and not to jump in front of any Sherry's questions, but I mean, you're gonna have to have a Venn diagram to figure this out at the end of the day on enforcement, right? And the bad actors, and those are the first ones you're gonna go to, but is this the tool that enforcement's looking for? I know that, but it's just this language and metrics and tools and items that we were looking for to fulfill what their needs.
So for this, so is your question regarding this particular one as far as the manufacturing?
Not manufacturing, sorry, the total of X amount of trailers per size of lot, per size, like, that's a lot of information to carry around. It brings up the dog issue with me, right? This is 700 square feet, you can only have 2 dogs. This is like, that's kind of the same kind of language we're getting here. It seems pretty complicated. I mean, we've gotten pretty far, but.
Are you really going back there?
No, I know, but we haven't even brought that back yet. But to Sherry's point, we have a year to massage this and figure it out and switch language, and I think it's a great 90+% are there. So maybe this is one of those things where we do err on the side of caution and saying, let's go personal vehicles in there for an item too. And if they are working on something that's not belonging to them, then it brings up a question, and you enforce it by saying, hey, you can't do that.
Yeah, or if we see a lot of manufacturing of
you see a whole
accessory
trailer parts
vehicles,
of,
we're like,
yeah,
wow,
iron there, yeah.
we've seen this pop up all over. All of a sudden, a lot of people are starting to manufacture in their backyards, and we have to crank that back.
Yeah.
And Sherry, I get it. I absolutely get it. And to Jared's point, like I had a neighbor that was constantly, it was just constant, right? It was just, and it was not, it affected the feel of the whole neighborhood. It just did, it just. For sure. I mean, so it was just, and it was all his personal stuff. He would bring it in, buy it, remodel it.
Flip it.
Flip it and then flip it. That was his personal, but it was, I like how it's written, how it is right now. Nathan?
One thing to think about, if you're going to put something in a code to allow somebody to do something and then want to take it out later, that can be a problem.
Yep. So I recommend we keep it like that.
That is a taking issue. If you give it to them and then think, we're going to take it back later, you probably cannot legally do that. You can't take it away once you give it to them.
So if it does become a problem, right, and we do get several issues because my neighbor does this. He and his son build cabinets out of his garage all day, every day, Sunday. And sometimes, a lot of times during the week, saws and stuff, but nobody's complained about it. But if I lived on, his garage is on the opposite side of me, right? And if it were next to my bedroom and it were constant, I'd have an issue with it because they're building the stuff at home and going out and selling it. So to your point, to Nathan's point, I can see it being an issue, right? There needs to be a way to handle it if we completely take it out of there, right? And say, you can do anything because it's a hobby, and then it's on us to prove that it's, a business. That bar's kind of too high for us to go and be able to really prove that on those things. And once we've allowed it, you're probably not going to be able to set that bar later and say, okay, now you can't do it.
Will you explain that to me? Because we do that all the time.
So once you, specifically if you spell it out, you give a right, and Todd can, once you give somebody a right on the property, you can't take it away. It becomes a potential taking. It was the question that Councilor Shields asked about changing that zone. When you do a text amendment, you are essentially changing the zone. I defer to Todd to maybe put legalese to that.
Yeah, when you give someone a right in the land use zone, you're giving, and they exercise that right, then they now have a vested right in that zone. To make a change after the fact and take that right away, one, they're probably going to be grandfathered in. And then two, if they're not, it could be considered a taking, as Nathan's saying, where you have to pay some type of damages.
So I guess to me, some of this does feel like a taking then. If you're telling them you can park your trailer up here, and now you're saying you can't, maybe that's a taking. You know what I'm saying? We do it all the time is my point. So I'm confused about how it's different.
Yeah, there's not a lot of case law on how it applies to accessory vehicles as opposed to your typical land use, like setbacks, building size, that sort of thing. So that's where there is gray area in this. But yeah, anytime you make a change to a code, there's that potential of, well, I was doing this under the code, and now you took it away.
Right, that's why we have grandfathering, right? So that makes people go, okay, well, I know you changed it, but I've been doing this forever, so I can continue to do it. And in this particular, it exactly took out the grandfather, and that was a major concern I had at the very first, was it saying, you got a year to comply, period, right?
Yeah, and that's one of the exceptions to vesting is you give them time to comply to get their investment back, essentially. Again, this is kind of uncharted area with accessory vehicles, but I still think it applies.
Yeah, my only thought is if you were going to say, yeah, they can build trailers, and then if we don't like it, we would take it away. If you put that in there, that they can, you probably can't take it out. If it's not in their argument, if it's not called in the ordinance, you may not have that right. So there's some of that. That was my concern as you're talking about that. If you're going to add that they can do something, you probably can't take that language out. If it's not in there now, it's a different kind of discussion.
I think it's a good point to make sure. I appreciate the conversation about it. I'm kind of full circle on it of, I think it needs to stay in there because it is complaint driven, right? So I'm going to still do the repairs and those sorts of things, but if I'm doing it constantly and aggressively, and it's bothering my neighbors, they should be able to complain about it and have something done.
But we're allowing them to do the repair and remodel.
Remodels, not construction, right?
Correct. Yep.
Okay, next point. Anything else?
I think that those are, way less than before.
Right. So tell me, just bullet point then, and let's just kind of get it, let me get a consensus.
The unsightly thing. Unsightly is such a vague, unenforceable word.
Which I thought we had given instruction to remove.
Well, he took out the one, this was probably an oversight, because this was just in the purpose.
Oh, okay.
So I just think I personally think unsightly should come out as, it's not enforceable.
I agree.
Okay.
And then A was.
I have some language.
Oh, you're awesome.
So I have outdoor accessory vehicle storage shall not be allowed on any lot zoned agricultural A, residential R, or forest recreation, except when, subsection 1, a permanent home is located on a lot or a lot is contiguous with a permanent home under one common owner, which it gets to your point, or And then the rest of the same. Primary use is established on the property. And then I corrected, instead of it saying C1, I think it meant B1. So I made that minor correction.
That sounds really good. What's the other primary use that could be established? A barn or something like that?
In agricultural zones, a primary use could be a barn.
Okay, that's what I thought. Okay, sorry.
A riding
So
range
thank
or
you for
something.
that.
As you said, bar.
I did too.
No
Where?
storage of materials.
Where?
I don't know how to fix that. I don't, it's, in my mind, it's vague. If you guys are okay with that, it's fine.
Which one?
The what, C, no storage
I think
of
I think
material.
we need to keep it in there. I mean, yeah.
Well, I don't mean, I think.
It needs to have a better definition, though, maybe just not materials, but maybe hazardous materials or something.
Not just hazardous.
I know, it's just not hazardous, and that's what I'm thinking, though, but it's.
It's probably not, I'm probably making a mountain of a molehill on it.
You know, hazardous or not pertinent to the use of the RV.
Yeah, it's something.
Sorry, I don't mean to make it
Get
complicated.
the wordsmith over here going on it again.
I don't
you
mean
know?
to make it complicated, I just mean.
That's what I wrote down too.
If somebody's like, no storage of materials, well, I'm not storing, what do you mean?
Like you said,
materials?
paper plates in my camper. I can't.
Yeah. I just mean somebody can take that to the extreme both ways,
Yeah.
and they probably will.
Materials not permitted to the use, or not
Like, if you
intended
talk
for
to
the
me
use of the
about
vehicle.
material,
What we're-
I'm gonna talk about. I
What
have
we're
no
concerned
problem.
about is storage of hazardous materials, right? Whether short-term or long-term.
Or becoming a storage unit
Yeah.
itself.
Throwing your lawnmower in your camper, and, yeah.
Anyway, I was,
How do we wordsmith that, Todd? Okay. Okay, next.
Todd,
Is
you're
there
already
anything
out.
else?
No, just.
Well, you're supposed to keep going so he can get words
Yeah,
on that one.
just the, just.
You can get what?
Oh,
So
wait,
you
there's
can
a
get the
couple other-
words down for that.
So,
Throw it in the
the only,
eye.
so just a request from staff, it's not necessarily in here, but really, I really want to track the impact this will have, because it will impact people. And it won't be a positive impact when you're asking them not to park their work trailer in their front yard, and that's the only place they have to park it.
But a lot of this won't be until it's complaint-driven by neighbors that know.
And I understand that, but I never, ever, sitting in this chair, ever want to make a law that's only based, that says, oh, it's not a big deal because it's only a
No,
civil
true,
complaint.
yeah.
So it's.
I mean, I think
it's
code
the-
enforcement will hit this stuff. They're
Yeah,
really,
and it's
they're
the
really.
rule. We're saying it's the law, and so I don't want to go and just tell them, don't worry about it, no one's going to ever complain. Because
But
the second you say that, they're going to have a new neighbor and they're going to complain.
I think that's where we're gonna have to get maybe some data points from code enforcement.
Exactly. I just want to be able to track that so we really understand the impact it's having. And then I want to know when this home or occupation ordinance is coming back, because we talked about, here's this, and you can have home occupation, but I want to see that come back in well before the year's up too.
Yeah, we'll get started on that with the action taken on this.
Okay.
On top of everything else.
I want to clarify one thing. Current code prohibits storage of recreational vehicles except, or they shall be within the side or rear yard of a dwelling on an approved parking surface. That was been in ordinance since 2017.
But that's a recreational vehicle, and so is the utility vehicle defined as recreational vehicle?
Not in this new.
Well, this says no boat or recreational vehicle, so I guess this is a confusing.
Yeah.
You
I think
can't keep
that's-
your boat or recreational vehicle, and this new code, I don't know that it would override this. This is more specific.
But can you keep your utility trailer there?
On the
No, I
appro-
think that's
But it'd have to be approved service.
That's all fuzzy has been the problem, right? That's been the problem with code enforcement?
So yeah, this is the ordinance you're talking about, right, Nathan?
One?
1024-7?
Yep.
The no boat or recreational vehicle should be parked in a front yard for longer than 7 consecutive days. So,
Then storage has to be in the side yard. So anything beyond 7 days has to be on a side yard.
But you can park it in your thing is about my point. It's like, if you're driving that utility trailer every day, you can back it in and park it. 'Cause you're
And
using
if
that
you
every
can
day.
fit it in your front yard, right, where it's not spilling out over the sidewalk, and it's not in the public right-of-way, et cetera.
Just, right now, it can't be there more than 7 days.
Yeah, so if they move it every day, they can move it every day, so this
Maybe you
doesn't
see-
change it, right?
But this changes that, does it not? Because the purpose is to change this, right? Because this will override that, right?
That, in my mind, yes. This, so the ordinance speaks specifically to accessory and recreational vehicles. So I think I'd probably defer to the attorney on this, but
If they're conflicting, we should clean that up.
So
I
that
don't
would
want to have
go
two
away.
ordinances that say different things.
Different things.
maybe we can just strike this one from the ordinance.
So that will come.
I'm still working on the language, so.
I'm actually good with the 7-day thing, right? If it's coming and going and it's not hanging on the sidewalk, it's not a safety hazard.
I don't have a problem with it either.
What we don't want is something parked there forever and it turns into junk,
Right.
right?
But I think the problem was, when we were talking about it, is that it takes up the intended parking for off-street parking for that home. So like if in our ordinance we say that unit needs to have 2 parking spaces, and they back their trailer in there, and now they're parking their car out on the road, and then it causes problems for traffic flow.
I'd rather have the car in the road than the trailer.
Exactly. But I'm just saying that was the reasoning behind not allowing it.
Well, I could see a scenario where every day through the summer, I'm backing my RV in there Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday, Friday, Saturday, it's gone to the campsite. It's back there, so every time I'm home, it's back there.
You might as well have
And
the
it's,
ordinance.
yeah, exactly, because it's rolling every couple days, and it's sitting in my front yard.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely drive by people every day that have their trailer in their,
But you're
it's
not
on concrete, and it's not impeding people's vision and stuff like that, but it is in front of the plane of their house.
And
So-
you don't know if it's been moved for the last day or two, or.
And
back
I don't
or-
care,
yeah.
because it doesn't.
Well, if you're
bother
code
me.
enforcement, you mark the tire and all that kind of stuff.
Good,
But
true, yeah.
to Steve's point, right, the unintended consequences, and Steve's general point with these things, unintended consequences. I don't want the unintended consequence of somebody's, and I think maybe this kind of what Mr. Winkler's sergeant was talking about, is to me, it's the side yard, but by definition, it's the front yard, and that's where I park my trailer, and it's not hanging over the sidewalk or whatever, but technically, it's the front yard, right? That doesn't make sense to me either. There's an unintended consequence that doesn't make a lick of sense to me.
But you can be cited for it.
Right.
Yeah.
So I understand the intent, but it also has, to me, a more negative consequence. You've got the side yard, but by definition, it's technically, I'm thinking about how mine is on the cul-de-sac, mine probably fits that definition. It's probably called the front yard.
Yeah, because it's
Where-
in front of the plane of your house.
Yeah, that obviously is a good place to park a trailer for anybody, so, yeah.
Anyway, so
So-
I have some angst with that, and I just really want to make sure that we're really looking at that, so we're minimizing, addressing the people that are complaining, but making sure the complaints aren't simply because I don't like the looks of your trailer, it's aimed more towards the safety of your neighborhood and the general residential atmosphere of your neighborhood. I don't care if somebody has their camp trailer parked there personally. Some people might, but I have to drill down more onto if it's at the safety issue than the other.
While we're wordsmithing, I'm going to address one of the overall points that the good sergeant, sorry, I didn't write down all your whole name. Sergeant Sam, that's what I had down. Winkler.
Sure, I get it, and Jared, I get it too. Like, I sometimes think we all live in neighborhoods that have more space. Like,
Rude. Yeah, a lot of people, most of our city doesn't.
that's what I'm saying. So I think we're looking at it from, in our neighborhoods. I mean, I think about some of these other areas, I just can't imagine trailers being parked.
A lot of times they're not spaced, so I'm going to go to the other point that's made in the general comment, and we've of course discussed it in all of these. If you want to hear my full opinion on all of this, it's like 4 other meetings where we've discussed all of this, right?
It's a long discourse.
I'm stalling as long as I can for you, Todd. The difference between the commercial, right? So there's a lot, we do have Old Town, and we have people who have larger lots who are capable of storing vehicles. It is a need in the city, as Sherry's pointed out several times in our discussions. But again, if I live next door to that person and my house is adjacent to the part of their lot where they're storing things, right? And people are coming and going, and lights and backup sirens and all that kind of stuff. And then you have the storage issues with vermin coming in. Like, there are real issues that come with operating a business in a residential zone. Having said that, I have neighbors who run daycares out of their home and have salons and all those sorts of things, but they have to go through the planning commission process, right? The neighbors are notified, this is the other use I want to use at my residential property. You have an opportunity to go and say, this is how it would impact and affect me. And they can find ways to mitigate those things, or the planning commission can say, no, that doesn't fit within that zone. So my point is, there's a process to go through if they want to use that land, which I have no problem with them doing so. I have a larger lot. I could fit several trailers back there and make some money, but it would definitely affect my neighbors with those things being there and the comings and goings, and it should go through that proper process. So that's a part of that we've put in here, right, that affects that. We're not telling them they can't do it anymore. We're telling them if they want to do it, there's a process to go through to make sure that their neighbors are protected too.
Well, there's going to be a process as soon as the ordinance comes back to us.
Well, yeah, right. That's about all I can give you.
Okay, let me try to drive some decisions so we can move on. Sherry, do you want to go back through and start with the changes? Let me get head nods on certain changes. Is that fair? Can we do that?
Unsightly.
Unsightly. Okay, we'll remove unsightly
Wording, right?
from the description.
So, Mayor, I'm thinking we can still do that with the wording he's working on. Like, we're not kicking this back and bring it back later.
No. No, I'm trying to get to a motion is what I'm trying to get to right now.
So he
Yes.
already.
I'm just going through her stuff, other than what he's
He
doing.
already addressed A, and was everybody good with the language as far as continuous property?
Yes.
Sorry, I didn't mean to take away.
Nope, you're fine.
Remove unsightly.
Remove unsightly.
No storage of materials, he's wordsmithing maybe something that makes it more clear, because I really believe, even though I think people would misuse it one way or the other.
Agreed.
Okay.
And so.
Okay, keep going.
The other is just the concerns about the vehicles being in your front yard and those kind of things.
So read the language that it's
It
written
says,
there.
no portion of the accessory vehicle shall extend into the front yard setback or be in front of the front plane of the home. So that means anybody that's parking their work trailer there, you're done, you can't do it anymore, and
So let me look, okay, so let me look.
Yeah.
So are you okay with the change, Jared, or no?
No, if that's how it reads, I don't like that at all.
Can you pull up the old,
If it's in the front plane of the home,
Yeah,
that means you
For
can't park
0
it.
days.
You can't park it on an RV pad.
you're right,
unless it's
exactly.
fenced and screened?
No, you can't. You cannot park it on an RV pad, period, out the side of that front plane of your home, even if it's fenced or screened, because you can't really, it has to be behind the front plane of the home.
Hasn't that always been?
No. Not the current ordinance says you can do it.
No,
for
so
7
just,
days.
yeah, current ordinance says you can park it no longer than 7 days.
You cannot store it. So if you're going to do it for the winter, something, it has to be in your side yard or behind your house. That's the current ordinance.
So what's wrong with leaving it at that?
Leaving it as this, no portion of the accessory, or is how it was before?
It's under the storage location.
Do you want to change that to say no portion of an accessory vehicle? That way RVs are not included? So you're talking about, accessory vehicles are going to be mostly utility trailers and stuff?
Well, the utility
that's the
trailers are the
hardest
ones I
part,
think they
yeah.
need to be parking in front, because they're using
Yeah.
it to work every day.
I don't even care if an RV is parked on an RV
I don't
pad.
either.
Well, this doesn't say park, this talks about storage.
Well,
Storage location.
tomato, tomato.
How do you, yeah.
So, is there
For the
difference?
average, so I go back to what was the intent of this? The intent of this, we were,
They're not just storing.
yeah, what we were told, and I've gone back to this almost every meeting, what we're told is the intent is that we're getting a lot of complaints, there's a lot of people running a commercial enterprise, storing things there, and there's bad effects from that. This is going too far and telling me as an individual homeowner, I can't park something on my RV pad.
I agree. I mean,
It's on the front, in the front,
Yeah, but it's
but on the side. Okay, I see what you're saying.
not in the
Or it doesn't
driveway.
even mean, it doesn't even have to be on the side. Even if I park it, might say, your flatbed trailer in your driveway. You disconnect it and park in the street. Or you have your 14-foot enclosed trailer or whatever in your driveway. You can't park in front of your house.
So I think I'm confused with what ordinance has been versus what we're proposing. What has ordinance been on this? That's where I'm really confused.
So they just
So the ordinance has been,
Can you pull that one back up on the screen, then you can read it?
That's why I don't know if we're talking the same thing.
It's the 1024.
10, all right, maybe we need to just kick it back again.
Because we're looking at this one's talking about storage of vehicles, and this one's talking about parking of vehicles. And I don't know how you can decipher.
Is there a differentiating between the two?
I mean,
I don't know if we have definitions for parking and storing of vehicles. Probably not.
Unless you're just talking about your 7 days.
That sounds like an attorney job to me.
Depends.
That's why I said tomato, tomato, right? And again, there's a difference between me parking even my motorhome on my RV pad, right? That's not sticking out on the sidewalk, that's not anywhere, it's on my property.
But they even then,
What's wrong with me parking and I don't have a motorhome, but me parking my motorhome on the RV pad that's in the front of my house on the side of my driveway, right? What we're saying would say I can't do that.
Right.
But I think that's how code reads. Tell me if I'm wrong. I think that's what code reads right now is you can't park.
That is correct.
So that's what I'm saying. We're not changing anything. We're just saying, we're just removing this 7-day thing right now. That's all you can't do that right now.
Moving what?
You cannot, so it says storage of an RV shall be within a side, rear yard, or dwelling of approved parking surface. No portion of RV, so that's the way it's been.
I can keep the 7 days. I don't have a problem if somebody's there and moves it.
I guess I understand what you're saying. We're not changing
They're
anything, but
using
we
it, because
are.
that's the difference between parking and storage.
Anytime we open up an ordinance, it's to make it better. And so even if you say, well, that was already there, we didn't change anything, well, maybe we should change it. You know what I mean? That's the whole purpose, is to make sure it's good.
I'm telling you, that'll.
I don't want to go there. If it's not changing, I don't want to change it, but if we're changing the 7 consecutive days, like Sherry said, then that does affect my ability.
Yeah, so you may and shall be parked in the front yard for longer. You shall not be parked in the front yard for longer than 7 days. I can park it in my front yard for 7 days.
As long as
sticking
that
out of my
stays,
house.
But that's not going to stay when
I
we
know
pass this
that.
ordinance.
That's, so right now, it's legal to park it in my front yard.
And that
Not
would
for more
chicken.
than 7 days.
Yeah.
Right. I can move my trailer every 6.5 days and be able to
You only, how far do you have to move it?
But that's what we're getting back to, is the
So-
enforcement.
G1.
How do you enforce the 7 days? So we're basically saying the same thing.
Move G.
Enforcement
You
of
guys can
7
say
days
that.
is very difficult, right?
It's-
Nobody knows when they move. Code enforcement's not going to come through and they say, oh,
We're
they
not
moved their
like New
trailer
York
an inch
parking.
this way or an inch that way.
And
So just saying that you can't have it in your front yard makes it easier for code enforcement to come by.
Absolutely, or that you can. You either have
Or
to
that
say
you
they
can.
can or they can't.
Right.
And I get we've got to be careful how we threaten, seriously. Because there are issues. I mean, I do get complaints even in my neighborhood about trailers parked in front of garages, right? It does, I'm sorry, I hate to use the word unsightly, but it's unsightly. I think that's where
You wear the same T-shirt 2 days in a row? Knew it.
No, because it's unsightly, Sherry.
If it's, I really don't care if it's, so for me, it's not unsightly. I don't care if somebody parks their motorhome in their driveway, as
fine.
long
I'm
as
just
it's
telling
not
you that's-
impeding with the sidewalk, right? And those other things that are health and safety. So I'm in favor of just striking that and keeping the 7 days.
I'm gonna prepare to go out on Friday the weekend. I'm gonna pull my trailer truck out to get ready.
Yeah.
I'm not packing everything down the side of my house.
And I get home on Sunday, I
It's gonna
might
sit
leave
there
it
for a
there
day or
until the
two,
next,
and then I
until
pull
next
back.
Saturday when I can take care of it.
Exactly.
Mr. Mayor,
Yes,
if I might,
please say something.
could I propose that we continue this item and allow Councilmember Orn to meet with city attorney and review the details here and spend some time wordsmithing her particular concerns to a level where she feels comfortable with it, and then bring it back for discussion?
I really only had the two
So
that I
keep
felt
this and
wordsmith,
we'll-
and the third is just this one. It's just, and it's beyond me, because we as a council need to decide if you want to allow them to park in the front or allow them to stay in the back.
I know, I was just going to say if that's a motion.
Yeah. I'm ready to make a motion, Mayor. How about that?
Wow, okay.
Do you want to hear my wordsmithing on?
So say
storage
your
of materials?
wordsmithing on the other one first.
So I define storage of material includes hazardous materials, flammable materials. And then this part, I struggled a little bit, but it's kind of getting to the storage unit aspect, or a large number of items that interfere with the safe operations of the recreational vehicle.
Oh, love it.
I do too, that's good.
Okay. I think I'm ready then with your guidance.
Okay.
All right. Make sure I get the right one here. we're still on 11.4?
Yep.
That's the one? All right. So
Jared's like, I don't want to bring this back.
Motion to, no, I don't. Motion to
Mike doesn't
approve,
wanna be
but I
there.
think we can get where we want to be, Sherry. So motion to approve ordinance number 2024-26, amending Title 10 of Harriman City Code to regulate the outdoor storage of recreational accessory vehicles on private property, removing section G1, which is what we just talked about, removing the term unsightly from the purpose section, and then adjusting the language as per the attorney on the following sections.
It's 10, 29, 22A, talking about the location of outdoor accessory vehicles on homes and contiguous lots. And then the next one was subsection C. And that's the one that I just read regarding the storage of materials.
Is that sufficient? Jackie?
So.
We're good?
Hold on. So removing G1 or making it keeping it as it
Removing
is?
G1 so it keeps it this way.
It'll maintain 10/24/7.
Will it, Todd? Will it still go to this, or do we need to have this language in there?
That's going to stay existing.
That's current.
Right?
The 1024/7?
Yeah.
Sure, yeah.
I just want to make sure that stays, because if we remove it completely, that's a,
Yes, it stays.
yes, okay.
Who's trying to draw this out and make it more complicated?
I just wanted to make sure that, because I thought that's what we were saying. Okay. Okay, I got the, yes.
Motion
Okay.
is made. I stand.
Second.
Motion by Jared, second by Sherry. Jared,
Yes.
Teddy,
Yes.
Sherry,
Yes.
Steve.
Please.
Yes.
Why do we do what we do?
Jackie,
For
I'll
the-
email
for the-
you the language right now.
Fame and fortune.
And I'll
is what
vote,
I think it was, right?
yes, that motion carries.
Well done, everybody. Thank you very much.
And Mike called in sick for this. No. I know.
Thanks,
Okay.
Clint, for all your
Also,
hard
if
work on
there's any
that.
further issues about this, the attorney just needs to fix it.
Yeah, we should have wrote in some administrative language.
Send us a
I
memo
will
with the
say thanks
language.
again,
make it go
Clint, for
away.
being patient with us on this. It was
Yes.
intent to make it
Okay,
happy for
11.5,
everyone.
consideration to approve reimbursement agreement for the Mountain Ridge Park with Edge Homes. Bryce,
15 seconds.
15 seconds.
How
We
much are
took
they, how much
5
are they
hours.
asking for Riverton to reimburse their half?
I do not know that information.
The matching Riverton Park on the other side, what are they wanting back from them?
So this is one slide, so hopefully we can keep it to 15 seconds.
Are there any graphics that Todd made?
There are graphics, so,
Nice.
and tables, so those two things.
Wow.
Is it not showing up? Okay, well, essentially, it is the same visual that we had in the last Mountain Ridge with the site plan. And then it broke it down that we are proposing a reimbursement agreement to build the site with Edge Homes for $705,000. So that would be installing the sod, installing the irrigation, installing the parking lot, installing the sidewalk and landscaping in the area. And then separately, we as the city would order the restroom, we would order the pavilion and the playground, and we would pay for those directly to the manufacturers of those. The proposal is to enter a reimbursement agreement with Edge Homes to do the site work for $705,000. And our budget is 1.5 million for the whole project. When you include those restrooms and everything, we get to about 1.2 million. So currently we'd have about 300,000 left as contingency on the project. So with that, I can answer any questions specific to the reimbursement or to the project overall.
These are all park impact fees collected from the area?
Correct.
Fantastic.
And some grant funding
Oh,
that was
even better.
obtained.
Okay, I look for a motion.
Motion to approve a reimbursement agreement with Edge Homes for the Mountain Ridge Park project.
Second.
Motion by Steve, second by Jared. Jared?
Yes.
Teddy? Yes. Sherry?
Yes.
Steve?
Yes.
I'll vote yes, that motion carries.
Okay, thank you.
That does bring us to the close of our meeting tonight. Thank you, Bryce. Nope, we do not. That was that last item that you mentioned right at the end. Was. Next, future meetings, next week, next Wednesday, Planning Commission, 7 o'clock. City Council meeting, 23rd at 7 o'clock. Election Day, November 5th. Senior Social, November 7th, here at City Hall at 11 a.m. What's that one? What is that one?
That's a Giddy Up Rodeo something, right?
Wow. Pull out my rodeo boots.
Yeah, you get to wear your hat twice this year.
Hey, I got a new belt buckle for my wife. It's a jazz one.
For your wife or from your wife?
From my wife. So, anyways, oh my gosh. Okay, I will look, we don't have to go back to close, we're done? We're going home? Okay, I'll look for motion to adjourn. Oh my word, not all at once. All in favor? Thank you, everybody.
Good work, Todd.